Chapter 991. Lin Yuan and Gao Feng had eaten in the royal capital's spirit food pavilion before, but they had eaten more casually. Lin Yuan and Gao Feng had booked an ordinary private room and had not booked one of the beautifully decorated VIP lounges in the spirit food pavilion to eat. Along the way, the spirit food pavilion's attendant kept sizing up Lin Yuan. Compared to Lin Yuan's face, the attendant's eyes were more focused on the silver embroidery on Lin Yuan's clothes. After sizing up the silver embroidery for a moment, the attendant's eyes were obviously a little surprised. It was as though he did not expect that someone would choose to use such precious threads from the diamond smooth silver silkworm for a daily spirit qi clothing. The attendant helped Lin Yuan open the Ime Hall's door and bowed to invite him in. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan stepped into the Ime Hall's door. Lin Yuan did not intend to hide his identity from Tian Ningning. He did not let Genius, which was squatting on his shoulder, turn into a silver mask and put it on his face. Since Lin Yuan intended to tell Tian Ningning his identity, he might as well meet Tian Ningning without a mask. Tian Ningning, who was sitting in the Ime Hall, heard a sound coming from the door. Tian Ningning immediately knew that it was Black. The VIP lounges in the Spirit Food Pavilion were designed to prevent the attendants from disturbing the diners when someone entered. Therefore, there was a porch screen set up at the entrance. The porch screen in the Ime Hall was planted with lush plum phase, pearl snow, which firmly blocked the porch screen that could still reveal a person's figure. Tian Ningning had already stood up and walked toward the porch, ready to welcome Black. Tian Ningning's heart was thumping violently. This accelerated heartbeat made her even more nervous than when she had first joined the Star Web and participated in the interview for the Star Web reporter. However, when Tian Ningning arrived at the porch screen and looked over, she saw a handsome and calm youth. A young man with an appearance that made people want to get close to him was walking over from behind the screen at the entrance. The youth clearly saw her, and his brows relaxed as he revealed a bright smile. When Tian Ningning saw the figure at the porch screen, she was stunned. Previously, Tian Ningning had wondered what Black would look like. Black's eyes were vaguely revealed through the mask, which made Tian Ningning believe that Black was definitely not ugly. As Black's exclusive reporter, Tian Ningning was also Black's #1 fan. Both publicly and privately, Ningning really wanted to know what Black looked like. If the person in front of her had changed his face and walked in, Tian Ningning would not hesitate to shout, "Black, you're here." However, Tian Ningning didn't dare to recognize the face of the person in front of her. Not only did Tian Ningning recognize the face in front of her, but she also had a deep impression of it. A few days ago, it was because of this person in front of him that Black had a negative impact on Star Web. This caused many disciples of the veteran forces and top forces to collectively diss him. This gave quite a number of netizens on Star Web the false impression that Black was very weak. Tian Ningning thought to herself, "Damn, I'm treating Black to a meal, so what is this Lin Yuan doing here?" Tian Ningning, who usually mingled in Black's official fan group and was influenced by Vagabond, had now become a pure-blooded Zuan girl. Just as Tian Ningning was about to say something, she heard a familiar voice. "I've made you wait for a long time. I'm 10 minutes early and not late." Tian Ningning couldn't be more familiar with Black's voice. As Black's exclusive reporter, Tian Ningning could be considered the one with the least work among all the exclusive reporters. Only when Black went to the Star Tower duels would Tian Ningning have the opportunity to write a few duel records. Therefore, during her free time, Tian Ningning would be like those male mothers and would go to the Star Web video library to watch Black's duel videos over and over again. She would then establish discussion forums and fan groups for the phase that Black had revealed. These discussion forums and fan groups had already gathered plenty of fans of Black's phase. Among them, the fae that could create a sea of flowers had the most fans. There were even people who drew a doujinshi picture of the fae that could create a sea of flowers in Black. Tian Ningning simply couldn't bear to look at such a doujinshi picture, but she was honest and secretly saved it. When Tian Ningning heard the voice in her ears, she was certain that it was Black's voice. A rather absurd thought appeared in Tian Ningning's mind. Tian Ningning immediately opened her mouth wide. Lin Yuan saw that Tian Ningning's mouth was like Tan Ran's contracted gluttonous hippopotamus, which could crush 2 pineapples in a single bite. Lin Yuan said with a smile, "Let's go. Let's go in and have a seat before we talk." At that moment, Lin Yuan could already feel that the attendant behind him was looking at him with a rather strange gaze. It was as though he had been brought to the wrong VIP lounge. When Tian Ningning heard Lin Yuan's words, she returned to her senses and looked at Lin Yuan's face with disbelief. "You are black." Lin Yuan nodded and walked past the entrance. When the attendant couldn't see him, Lin Yuan spoke to Genius, which was obediently squatting on his shoulder. "Genius, tool transformation." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Genius let out a meow, and immediately turned into a silver mask. Lin Yuan put on the silver mask and turned around to speak to Tian Ningning. Guaranteed to be the real deal. When she saw Lin Yuan wearing the silver mask, a familiar feeling filled Tian Ningning's heart. Even if she couldn't believe it, Tian Ningning was certain that Lin Yuan and Black were the same person. At the same time, Tian Ningning had also resolved a doubt in her heart. It turned out that the silver mask that Black had been wearing was transformed by a fae called Genius with its exclusive skill. While seated at the dining table, Lin Yuan saw that Tian Ningning had a lot of questions and said, "Previously on the Star Web, you told me that you have something to discuss with me. Previously on Star Web, you told me that you also have something to discuss with me. It just so happens that if you have any questions you can ask me directly. I will answer all questions." Even though Tian Ningning was seated at the table, she still felt that her worldview had been impacted. This wasn't the first time Tian Ningning lamented in her heart. "Damn it. Turns out that Black and Lin Yuan are the same person." When this thought appeared in her mind, Tian Ningning quickly shook her head. She forced herself to re-evaluate Lin Yuan's image in her heart. She changed sand coin to Lin Yuan cow coin. After hearing Lin Yuan say that she could ask any question, Tian Ningning knew that the question she was about to ask was a little stupid. Lin Yuan had already confirmed it earlier, but Tian Ningning still couldn't help but want to ask again. Black is Lin Yuan? No. Lin Yuan is Black? That's not right either. You are both Lin Yuan and Black. The first one is even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 992. When Lin Yuan heard Tian Ningning's incoherent words, he raised his eyebrows. Didn't these 3 sentences mean the same thing? Seeing that Tian Ningning still had doubts, Lin Yuan said, "After becoming a creation master, I used the creation master's privileges to split my identity into a creation master's identity and a combat class spirit chi professional's identity. Black is my identity as a combat class spirit chi professional." After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning immediately understood what was going on. But then Tian Ningning showed a puzzled expression. Wasn't Lin Yuan famous on Star Web because of his duel with the Barbarian Snake Guild Club's Meng Su during the All-Star match? At that time he had not used Black's identity as a combat class spirit chi professional. Tian Ningning found it hard to imagine that Lin Yuan's original identity was a creation master. This also showed that Lin Yuan had not fully revealed his trump card as a combat class spirit chi professional. With that thought, Tian Ningning looked at Lin Yuan and couldn't help but sigh with admiration. Black was already so outstanding. If Black still had a trump card and was also a creation master, Black would definitely be a creation master. Tian Ningning couldn't imagine how outstanding Black was. Originally, Tian Ningning had many questions to ask Black. However, Tian Ningning, who was agitated, had mixed feelings and all her questions were stuck in her throat. He didn't know what to ask. Lin Yuan and Tian Ningning looked at each other in silence for 20 seconds. Tian Ningning looked like she had something to say but didn't know how to say it. Lin Yuan asked Genius to transform from the silver mask into its main body. Genius let out a meow and burrowed into Lin Yuan's embrace. Her small head rubbed against Lin Yuan's finger like a spoiled child. Lin Yuan looked at Tian Ningning very seriously and said, "Since you don't have anything to ask me now, I have quite a few things to tell you. First of all, thank you for being my exclusive reporter during this period of time. You have been very busy on Star Web. There are many times when I don't reply in time. I'm sorry. But I can guarantee that as long as I see your message, I will reply immediately. As long as it's a message that I didn't reply to, I didn't see it." Lin Yuan was very sincere to Tian Ningning. On one hand, he wanted to thank Tian Ningning for helping him as his exclusive reporter. On the other hand, he also apologized to Tian Ningning for not being able to contact him due to various reasons. Lin Yuan had already said this on Star Web. But now that he was face to face with Tian Ningning, Lin Yuan felt that there was a need to repeat his words sincerely. When Tian Ningning heard Lin Yuan's words, she felt warmth in her heart. No matter what, Lin Yuan was aware of her efforts. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning had a lot of questions that she wanted to ask, but they were stuck in her throat. Now that Tian Ningning had received an explanation, she no longer had anything else to ask Lin Yuan. If they asked more questions, they would just be questions about his contracted phase and his future plans. If Tian Ningning asked such a question, it would be equivalent to turning a dinner into an interview. Tian Ningning looked at Lin Yuan and smiled gently. I understand. You've done so many things with just your identity as black. A lot of things are bound to happen when you live with Lin Yuan's identity, so you must be very busy. Tian Ningning recalled that Lin Yuan had ridden a butterfly species Fae to protect Millstone Town under the Class 2 Swamp Dimensional Rift. The same location, the same youth, and two identities had made the same choice with the passage of time. Such a youth would have a radiant luster even when he breathed. Black, can I call you directly if there's anything in the future? Or if there's an emergency, can I look for you at the address you gave me? Lin Yuan nodded and replied, of course. It just so happens that I have something to tell you too. Just as Lin Yuan was about to speak, a crisp bell echoed from Ime Hall's entrance. This crisp bell was the signal for the Spirit Food Pavilion's attendants to serve the dishes. The crisp sound of the bell was the signal that the Spirit Food Pavilion's attendants were about to bring out the dishes. Soon 7 attendants entered the room in a single file. He placed 1 main dish, 3 side dishes, 1 cold dish, 1 soup dish and 1 spirit fruit platter on the table. Lin Yuan picked up a bowl and scooped a bowl of cinnamon branch fish head soup for Tian Ningning. Lin Yuan picked up a bowl and scooped a bowl of cinnamon fish head soup for Tian Ningning. I want to deepen the cooperation between us. I don't know what else you are busy with other than being my exclusive reporter? Tian Ningning took the cinnamon branch fish head soup from Lin Yuan and shook her head. Other than being your exclusive reporter, I've already declined all other matters. I'm not busy. I have no problem with any cooperation. Tian Ningning scooped up a spoonful of cinnamon branch fish head soup and said, Black, the cinnamon branch fish head soup here is especially fresh. Last time I came to the Spirit Food Pavilion with the chief editor and the others, I had the cinnamon branch fish head soup once. This cinnamon twig fish head soup is definitely the freshest soup I've ever tasted. As she spoke, Ningning couldn't help but recall what editor Kong Chi had done a few nights ago. She had actually wanted Lin Yuan and Black to duel on Star Tower. The two of them were the same person. There was no possibility of them fighting. It was no wonder the chief editor didn't agree to this matter after communicating with Star Tower. Tian Ningning didn't know that because of Kong Chi's idea, the manager of Star Tower had been summoned by Mystic Moon while sweating profusely. He had been interrogated for 2 hours and he hadn't been released yet. After Lin Yuan scooped a bowl of soup for Tian Ningning, he scooped a small bowl for Genius. Genius placed its little nose in front of the bowl and realized that there was the smell of fish. Genius hurriedly raised its 2 little paws and extended its front paws, placing them on top of the soup bowl as it spoke. Lin Yuan, Genius doesn't want to drink soup that smells like fish. Lin Yuan smiled when he heard Genius' words. He picked up a piece of lychee roasted crispy skinned duck's wing and placed it on a porcelain plate. He then placed the porcelain plate in front of Genius. Lin Yuan then took the bowl of cinnamon branch fish head soup that he had scooped for Genius and took a sip. After taking a sip, Lin Yuan felt that this bowl of cinnamon branch fish head soup wasn't as tasty as Tian Ningning had said. Ever since he had moved to the royal capital, Lin Yuan's meals had always been good. The spiritual ingredients that he had eaten in the mansion had always been gold grade, with silver and platinum as supplements. Just the taste of these high-end spiritual ingredients was enough to make a foodie unable to stop eating. Moreover, there was a master chef like Lu Jia who was making secret recipes. It was needless to mention eating in the Radiant Moon Palace. There was basically no chance for spiritual ingredients below platinum to be served on the table. Basically, every main dish was the most delicious part of a diamond fay. The second dish was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 993. From Tian Ningning's words, Lin Yuan knew that she usually did not come to a place like the Spirit Food Pavilion to eat. He would only be able to eat at the Spirit Food Pavilion once in a while if he had the chance to participate in a Star Web event. Lin Yuan said, Next time I'll treat you to a meal at my place and let you try Lu Jie's fish head soup. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning, who was drinking her fish head soup, asked in surprise. Wuxia? Is it the Radiance 100 sequences Wuxia? And you're living with Wuxia? Lin Yuan nodded in response. That's right, we live together. This is also what I wanted to talk to you about. We've established a guild club at the place where we live. We want to form a team to participate in this year's S tournament. Would you be interested in becoming our team's reporter? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning, who was drinking the cinnamon branch fish head soup, choked on the soup. He couldn't help but cover his mouth and turn around to cough for a long time before he could calm down. When he had sent a message on Star Web, Lin Yuan had said that he had something to discuss with him. Tian Ningning was still wondering what was going on. Could he be planning to accept an interview? He had not expected Lin Yuan to give him such a great opportunity. After coughing, Tian Ningning turned around and said with enthusiasm in her eyes. I'm willing. If you are willing to hand over the club's guild to me, let me become the team reporter for the club's guild team. Then I will definitely do my best. Oh right. You said that you and Wuxia are living together, and you've even established a guild club in the same place. Is Wuxia also a member of the team? Lin Yuan nodded. That's right. Wuxia is also a member of the club's guild's main force. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning immediately knew that Lin Yuan's team had a high chance of becoming a B-class team this year. Lin Yuan and Wuxia were in the team with the combat power of the Radiance 100. Even if the rest of the team was a slacker, they would not be able to defeat the Radiance 100. It was not impossible for them to enter the top 16. Moreover, Lin Yuan and Wuxia could not let their teammates be a bunch of hooligans. Thinking of this, Tian Ningning felt her blood boiling in an instant. At that moment, Tian Ningning heard Lin Yuan speak again. There are still 2 main team members who haven't been confirmed. You probably don't know the remaining one. But there's already a choice for the only remaining spot in the main team. It shouldn't be a problem for me to go and talk about it. The reserve team members are all here. 4 of them are former reserve team members of the Extreme Guild Club: Xianxia, Lu Pinru, Tan Ran and Xen Ying. The last reserve team member is my younger sister, Zhou Xian. When Tian Ningning heard Lin Yuan's words, she felt that Lin Yuan's newly established guild club was not just aiming to become a B-class guild club but one of the S tournament's top 3. Tian Ningning rarely paid attention to news other than Black on Star Web, but she had heard of Zhou Xi's name. Previously, many people had compared Black to Zhou Xi. They had not expected this prodigy with a bronze/fantasy breed Fae to be Lin Yuan's younger sister. What kind of immortal genes did this family have? Tian Ningning also knew the Extreme Guild Club's reserve team members: Xianxia, Xen Ying, Tan Ran and Lu Pinru. He also acknowledged the strength of the 4 of them. Even if their Faes were not outstanding among all the S tournament team members, the 4 of them had rich combat experience and were very good at cooperating. At that time, Tian Ningning had been able to become Black's exclusive reporter because of her relationship with Xianxia, Xen Ying, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran. However, when she heard Lin Yuan's news, Lu Pinru could not help but frown slightly. In the previous season, Xianxia, Xen Ying, and the others had still been in the Extreme Guild Club. In the next season, they had appeared in Lin Yuan's newly established guild club. This situation would make many people think that Lin Yuan's guild club had poached the Extreme Guild Club's people. If the news was reported like this, it was likely to cause some bad repercussions. Therefore, Tian Ningning planned to think of a way to deal with this matter as soon as she became the team's reporter. After sorting out her thoughts, Tian Ningning suddenly wanted to ask about some gossip. That was why so many of the young core members of the veteran factions and top factions had gone to Dis Black on Star Web in order to curry favor with Lin Yuan and speak up for him a few nights ago. Previously, Tian Ningning had always thought that Lin Yuan had taken the initiative to cause this matter. Otherwise, it would not have formed such a large scale. It had to be known that the young core members of the veteran factions and top factions usually kept a very low profile on Star Web and rarely showed their edge. But now that Tian Ningning knew that Lin Yuan and Black were the same person, she understood Lin Yuan's character. She knew that Lin Yuan had definitely not taken the initiative to cause this matter. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yuan was a low-profile person, even if he was abnormally high-profile, there was no need for him to find someone to scold and say that he was weak. Just as Tian Ningning was about to ask Lin Yuan what was going on, she suddenly heard a meow. Then a childish voice said to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, genius wants to eat red braised pork." Then a childish voice said to Lin Yuan, Lin Yuan, genius wants to eat red braised pork. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan scratched Genius's little nose. Genius, this little gluttonous cat, had finished the lychee roasted crispy skinned duck's wings so quickly. Before Lin Yuan could speak, Tian Ningning stood up and said, "I'll go outside and order another serving of red braised pork. I'll go outside and order another serving of red braised pork." After saying that, Tian Ningning left Yimei Hall through the entrance screen. Lin Yuan did not stop her. In any case, when he entered, he had already bet 10,000 radiance dollars with the attendant. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yuan had money now, even if he did not have money, he would not let Tian Ningning pay for this meal. The floating bamboo hall beside Yimei Hall was filled with people. The floating bamboo hall was considered a relatively large hall in the royal capital's spirit food pavilion, and a large table could accommodate 20 to 30 people. At that moment, the floating bamboo hall's table was filled with people, and they were all looking fervently at a fat youth who was holding a cell phone and making a call. The fat youth's face was blooming with a greasy smile. It made one feel as though a large bowl of fat had been forcefully poured into one's mouth. While speaking, the fat youth on the chair subconsciously bowed and constantly spoke words of flattery. His tone revealed an abnormal sense of respect. The fat youth that everyone was looking at did not sit at the main seat in the floating bamboo hall. Instead, he sat at the leftmost seat beside the main seat. Even though there were so many people attending the meal, the dishes had yet to be served. It was obvious that they were waiting for the main seat to come over. After hanging up the phone, the fat youth's greasy smile that was like a chrysanthemum flower was immediately replaced with an arrogant expression. "Young Master Miao will be coming over later. I heard that he brought the Zheng family's second young master along this time. When you guys speak later, you have to watch your words. Don't flatter the wrong person." Did everyone want to see a simple and crude face-smacking scene, or a plot with a B-grade face-smacking scene? This book seemed to have only face-smacked once. End of this chapter. Chapter 994. As the saying goes, good news never goes out, but bad news travels 1,000 miles. The news regarding the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift from the Great Night Assembly had yet to spread. However, almost everyone knew that Miao Zhuo had been chased out of the outer palace of Yeong Palace. At this moment, the people sitting in the floating bamboo hall were the disciples of the various rising forces and veteran forces. The disciples of these new and established forces had been hanging out with Miao He. Miao He was a prominent figure among the younger generation of the Miao family, but he had always been suppressed by Miao Zhuo. In the past, these disciples of rising forces and veteran forces who followed Miao He were like mice that had seen a cat when they saw Miao Zhuo. They only dared to avoid him. The disciples of the top forces would only address Miao Zhuo as young Master Miao when they mentioned him. Miao He was also a direct descendant of the Miao family's beast creation garden, but he was not worthy of being called young Master Miao. Even if the core members of the younger generation of the veteran forces were exceptionally polite to Miao He, they only dared to call him second young Master Miao. However, things were different now. Miao Zhuo's status in the Miao family had plummeted. Miao He, who was previously in second place, had no one to suppress him, so his position naturally rose. Today, these lackeys who used to follow Miao He were holding a banquet to congratulate him for standing out in the beast creation garden. A thin-lipped woman at the banquet immediately replied when she heard the fat youth's words. "Brother Song, since someone other than young Master Miao is coming later, I might as well go out and ask the waiter to add another chair and serve a few more dishes." Speaking of this, the thin-lipped woman suddenly thought of something and knocked on the wall beside her. The Spirit Food Pavilion has a big and a small VIP lounge. The walls of the adjacent VIP lounges are all made by the entrances. I'll ask the attendants at the Spirit Food Pavilion if they can open up this wall and merge the two halls together. Otherwise, it would be too crowded for so many of us to sit at this big table. In such a crowded environment, even if young Master Miao doesn't say anything, he definitely won't stay for long. The obese young man showed a thoughtful expression when he heard this. He frowned and looked at the woman with thin lips. "Do you know who's eating in Yimei Hall? Young Master Miao will be here soon. Don't cause any trouble. It'll be ugly when young Master Miao arrives." The woman sneered in disdain. "Don't worry. The person eating opposite us should be a Star Web reporter. I saw the Star Web work pass pinned to that person's clothes. There are only 2 bars on the work pass." With such a level of star web, even if I were to wait for someone, it wouldn't be any big shot. Heh, this kind of trash even took the discount coupons that the Spirit Food Pavilion gave to Star Web when he booked the VIP lounge. Does this kind of person deserve to eat in the VIP lounge? Eating with this kind of person across the wall not only lowers our status, but it also lowers young Master Miao's status. After that, the thin-lipped woman pulled up the sturdy young man with a slightly sunken nose and said, "Dou and I will handle this matter. Now that we've cleared 2 VIP lounges and replaced them with big tables, we can definitely add another 25 dishes. Together with the 41 dishes we ordered before, we'll have 66 dishes." With that, the woman with thin lips pulled the young man with a flat nose and left the floating bamboo hall. After leaving the floating bamboo hall, the young man with a flat nose called Dou Wu asked the woman who was holding his thin lips, "Kai Qing, what you said to Brother Song just now was a bit too much. This isn't any other place but the Spirit Food Pavilion. It's fine to cause trouble in the Spirit Food Pavilion if the other party is weak. If the other party fights with you, you can do whatever you want outside the Spirit Food Pavilion. However, you have to take care of the Spirit Food Pavilion's reputation inside the Spirit Food Pavilion." After speaking, the young man with a flat nose called Dou Wu wanted to turn around and return to the floating bamboo hall. He didn't want to follow the thin-lipped woman and cause trouble for no reason. When Kai Qing heard Dou Wu's words, she quickly reached out to grab his sleeve, and her expression became rather charming. "Don't. My family has been promoted from a rising faction to a veteran faction for almost 50 years. Even if there is still a gap between us and the top veteran factions, my family started by selling ingredients and has a lot of cooperation with the Royal Capital's Spirit Food Pavilion. There are a total of 3 stewards in the Royal Capital's Spirit Food Pavilion. The one on duty today is my uncle." At that time, this floating bamboo hall was almost booked by that Star Web reporter, and I even snatched it from him. That Star Web reporter didn't dare to cause trouble previously, but as long as our current attitude is tough enough, she still won't dare. Your Wu family has just been promoted from a rising faction to a veteran faction, and your duty is to deal with the dead phase that have been separated from their spiritual ingredients. The Wu family's and our Kai family's duties are somewhat overlapping, but they are not exactly the same. If there is a chance, I can introduce you to my uncle and establish a relationship with the Spirit Food Pavilion. Young Master Miao will also look up to you." Dou Wu's expression didn't change because of Kai Qing's words. When he glanced at Kai Qing, his eyes were filled with hidden disgust. Even so, Dou Wu's tone became a little gentler. "Kai Qing, I will have to trouble you with this matter. It is a good time to go for an outing at the Emerald Mountain on the outskirts of the Heavenly King capital in spring. Once this matter is settled, I will invite you to the Emerald Mountain for a spring outing." Kai Qing, who was walking, was delighted when she heard Dou Wu's words. But before Kai Qing could agree, Kai Qing's expression was immediately tainted with a hint of sternness. This was because Kai Qing found Tian Ningning, who had just ordered a honey-braised pork and a pebble python beef at the front desk. Under normal circumstances, Tian Ningning only needed to shake the plum species fei beside her, Pearl Snow, in the Imei Hall. The hanging bell tied to the Pearl Snow would emit a crisp bell to call the waiter over. Tian Ningning had chosen to come to the Spirit Food Pavilion's front desk to order because she wanted to pay. Tian Ningning, who had already taken out her Star Web card, didn't expect that before he entered the Imei Hall, he had already bet 100,000 radiance dollars at the front desk. Tian Ningning was originally a rather valued newcomer on Star Web. It wasn't a problem for her to write special reports for a month and earn 200 to 300 radiance dollars. However, after Tian Ningning became Black's exclusive reporter, she no longer wrote special reports and naturally couldn't get the viewing commission for special reports. Black had always been unwilling to accept interviews. Therefore, after becoming Black's exclusive reporter, Tian Ningning's monthly salary was much lower. She had an income of 200 to 300 radiance dollars per month, but now she had an income of 120 to 120 radiance dollars. Speaking of which, Tian Ningning's lowest monthly income was less than 100 radiance dollars. Even so, Tian Ningning's income was considered quite high in the entire Radiance Federation. Tian Ningning was prepared to bleed a lot for today's meal. Before the meal, she had already carefully calculated that it would cost about 550 radiance dollars. The first one was even more expensive. End of this chapter. Chapter 995. Including the newly ordered honey-braised pork and pebble python beef, the total cost would be around 700 radiance dollars. This was roughly equivalent to 4 months of Tian Ningning's current salary. Although Tian Ningning felt the pinch of using 4 months' salary to treat Lin Yuan to a meal, she felt that it was worth it. No amount of money could replace the feeling of meeting their idol. Hello, I want to pay with my money. When you leave later, return the 100,000 radiance dollars to that Mr. Hearing Tian Ningning's words, the front desk staff of the Spirit Food Pavilion replied with a polite smile. I'm really sorry, but the Spirit Food Pavilion has set up a rule to prevent people from competing to pay the bill. That is, as long as someone bets money, all expenses will be deducted from the bets. If you really want to pay, you can pay that gentleman after the meal. Hearing this, Tian Ningning scratched her head. He had said that he would treat Lin Yuan to a meal, but Lin Yuan was the one footing the bill. Although she was happy to have her idol pay for her, Tian Ningning still felt that it wasn't right. At this moment, an annoying voice rang in Tian Ningning's ears. Hey, I meet you again. Don't you know how to use the hanging bell in the VIP lounge? He even personally came out to order. Since I see you here, it saves me a lot of trouble. When Tian Ningning heard the woman's words, she immediately frowned. Tian Ningning had heard this harsh and disdainful tone not long ago. At that time, Tian Ningning was furious. When Tian Ningning saw Lin Yuan, she finally suppressed the anger in her stomach. Now that Tian Ningning heard the thin-lipped woman speak to her in such a tone, her anger flared up again. Originally, Tian Ningning had a gentle personality, but after she joined Black's official fan club, she became more and more like a gentle person. Under the influence of wandering, she had completely turned into a pure-blooded Zhuan girl. Anyone who dared to speak rudely in front of a pure-blooded Zhuan girl would have to consider how many horses they had and whether they had enough. Just as Tian Ningning was about to subconsciously retort, she recalled Lin Yuan, who was in Immerse Hall. Tian Ningning quickly swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue and said, "Why are you looking for me? Back then you snatched the floating bamboo hall from me. I gave it to you as well. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to my meal." After saying that, Tian Ningning was about to leave. However, Tian Ningning didn't expect the thin-lipped woman in front of her to stop her. "I've also taken the Immerse hall you booked. Regardless of whether you're eating alone or with a companion, leave immediately." Kai Qing's words immediately made Tian Ningning spit out the words she had swallowed with great difficulty. "Are you taking advantage of your horse? Your horse has been taken, do you know that? How big is your butt? The floating bamboo hall is so big, but it's not enough for you. When you occupied the floating bamboo hall, I didn't want to cause any trouble, so I let you have it. Just how big is your horse face? You still have the face to come and occupy the plum hall? Do you think the Spirit Food Pavilion belongs to you? Did you even leave your horse at the Spirit Food Pavilion?" After saying that, Tian Ningning glared at Kai Qing and turned to the attendant at the front desk. She said she wants to take over our Immerse hall. I've only eaten for half an hour since I booked the Immerse hall. I haven't finished my meal yet. I need the Spirit Food Pavilion to handle this matter. Tian Ningning didn't spend so much money to invite Lin Yuan to the Spirit Food Pavilion just to be bullied. Lin Yuan was still eating in the Immerse hall, so even if she settled this matter, she wouldn't be able to disturb him. After being bullied over and over again, Tian Ningning couldn't be bothered to put up with it anymore. How can a stinking old woman like you provoke a pure-blooded Zhuan? It had been very easy for Kai Qing to snatch the floating bamboo hall from Tian Ningning. He had thought that it would only take a word from him to occupy the Immerse hall. In the end, just as he opened his mouth, the horse flew away. Tian Ningning's words made Kai Qing feel as though she had entered a horse farm. Her mind was filled with horse neighs and she didn't know what to say for a moment. Kai Qing usually spoke harshly and had a vicious heart, but he really couldn't handle Tian Ningning, who came and went as she pleased. Kai Qing suddenly raised her voice and roared at Tian Ningning. "Do you know who I am? How dare you speak to me like this?" Tian Ningning rolled her eyes at Kai Qing. "Since you want to say who you are, I happen to be a star web reporter. I might be an exclusive reporter, but I also have the authority to write miscellaneous articles. Young lady, please tell me who you are. Let me see how you are so awesome to be able to casually snatch someone's VIP hall in the Spirit Food Pavilion. Do you think your family owns the Spirit Food Pavilion?" When Kai Qing heard the first half of Tian Ningning's words, he wanted to reveal his identity. He wanted to use his identity as a 50-year-old faction to suppress this Class 2-star web reporter in front of him. However, the latter half of Tian Ningning's sentence made Kai Qing unable to say the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Kai Qing's uncle was the royal capital's Spirit Food Pavilion's manager. Whenever his uncle was on duty at the Spirit Food Pavilion, Kai Qing already felt that the Spirit Food Pavilion belonged to his family. However, the rules of the Spirit Food Pavilion were set by that lord, and his uncle was the manager of the Spirit Food Pavilion. He couldn't defy the rules set by that lord. Therefore, even if Kai Qing called his uncle, he didn't have the authority to chase the guests out of the Immerse hall. Tian Ningning saw that Kai Qing's face was ashen and cold and she couldn't say a word. Tian Ningning pursed her lips and said, "The Spirit Food Pavilion doesn't belong to your family. The Spirit Food Pavilion doesn't belong to your family. Who are you trying to impress by whining about it?" After speaking, Tian Ningning pushed Kai Qing's arm away and walked in the direction of the Immerse hall. The man with the flat nose who was called De Wu was frowning. However, De Wu didn't glare at Tian Ningning. Instead he stared at the ashen Kai Qing beside him. Kai Qing had just vowed to the others in the floating bamboo hall that she could merge the floating bamboo hall and the Immerse hall together. Kai Qing had already said such big words and he had even called him. If Kai Qing couldn't do it, he would be humiliated like Kai Qing when he returned. Seeing Kai Qing's ashen face, De Wu said, "Young Master Miao is coming. If you didn't mention that the floating bamboo hall and the Immerse hall couldn't be merged, it wouldn't be a big deal. But since you mentioned it, young Master Miao might hear that you can't even merge a room when your uncle is on duty. Then I'm afraid it won't be possible for young Master Miao to look up to you because of the Spirit Food Pavilion." Kai Qing's face changed drastically when he heard De Wu's words. The second one was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 996. Miao. He was no longer second young Master Miao, but the young master of a top faction, the Beast Creation Garden. Being by Miao He's side meant that he had the backing of the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden. Therefore Kai Qing would never allow Miao He to doubt his abilities. Thinking of this, Kai Qing's eyes suddenly revealed a fierce glint. Since this star web reporter in front of him didn't know how to appreciate favors, he just had to turn this VIP lounge incident into a fight. Those who were injured were naturally sent to the infirmary for treatment. In this way the Plum Blossom Hall was empty. His uncle couldn't go against the rules set by that lord to occupy the VIP lounge, but it wasn't a problem for his uncle to resolve the fight. As Kai Qing channeled his mental power, a nearly 2-meter-long dark green wolf appeared in front of him. After summoning the dark green giant wolf, Kai Qing immediately ordered, "Blunt Wind Wild Wolf, use Boning Wind Blade." Then the giant greenish-black wolf roared. Nearly 20 greenish-black short and thick wind blades gathered around the wild wolf and flew straight at Tian Ningning. Kai Qing's sudden attack completely exceeded Tian Ningning's expectations. Tian Ningning was also a combat-class spirit chi professional and had a certain combat strength. However, when facing the sudden attack, Tian Ningning didn't have the time to summon a fey to block the blunt wind wild wolf's bone-scraping wind blade. Tian Ningning suddenly had an idea. She took a step and hid behind a vertical vase that was placed on the wall of the Spirit Food Pavilion as a wall scenery. Then Tian Ningning used all her strength to move the huge vertical vase and put it in front of her. Kai Qing saw that Tian Ningning was using the vase to block the attack. He wanted to tell the blunt wind wild wolf to change the direction of the bone-scraping wind blades. One had to know that the vertical vases in the Spirit Food Pavilion were all luxury items that had been evaluated by the Grace Pavilion. Even if Kai Qing was a disciple of a veteran faction, he would have to pay a large sum of money to compensate for the broken vase. But when she thought of young Master Miao who was about to arrive, Kai Qing couldn't care less. He was willing to pay for the elegant gallery's appraised vertical vase to settle this matter as soon as possible. The Immerse hall and the floating bamboo hall were connected. While Kai Qing was hesitating, Tian Ningning had already summoned her contracted fey, the crystal-horned buck, behind the vertical vase. The crystal-horned stag was a support-type fey, but its horn could condense the space within a certain range. This allows objects within the space to use spatial energy to resist attacks. As a member of a veteran force, Kai Qing had never thought about how to improve his strength. Even so, Kai Qing's blunt-winged wild wolf strength had reached Platinum 3/Legend. Tian Ningning had only contracted one fei, and it was this crystal-horned stag. The crystal-horned stag was upgraded to gold rank 10 by Tian Ningning. The crystal-horned stag was much weaker than the blunted-winged wild wolf in terms of quality. It had only reached the perfect quality. Thus, under the blunt-winged wild wolf's bone-scraping wind blade, even with the support of the vertical vase and the power of space, the blunt-winged wild wolf's bone-scraping wind blade would not be able to withstand it. Tian Ning was still cut in many places. Because the main dishes in the Spirit Food Pavilion were all cooked using deviant flames, the cooking speed had always been extremely fast. At that moment, the pebble python beef that Tian Ningning had ordered was served by the waiter and was ready to be served. The waiter holding the pebble python beef was clearly stunned by the scene before him. Kai Qing saw the cobblestone python beef being served by the waiter. She snatched the tray from the waiter's hand and walked in front of Tian Ningning. "This is the dish you ordered. Finish it before you get lost." Kai Qing poured the cobblestone python beef onto Tian Ningning's body. When the pebble python beef was first served, it was actually not cooked. The beef that was covered with the pebbles was still in a half-raw state. It needed to be slowly roasted on the pebbles that had been heated by the deviant flame. Therefore, the pebbles in the pebble python beef were at least 300 degrees Celsius. Thus, when these pebbles fell on Tian Ningning's wounds, they scalded her and caused her to scream. Kai Qing, who had just made a move on Tian Ningning, didn't even have the pleasure to appear for 3 seconds before he immediately became a little embarrassed. Kai Qing saw that his uncle had already rushed over with young Master Miao. Young Master Miao was accompanied by an arrogant young man. He should be the second young Master Jing that Brother Song had mentioned on the phone. Miao He had always been suppressed by Miao Zhua and had only just risen in the past few days. It could be said that this was Miao He's most glorious day. However, the only thing that made Miao He a little unhappy was Jing Kaiyuan's arrogance toward him. Miao He, who had come to the appointment happily, saw the farce in front of him. He first glanced at Dao and Kai Qing, then at Tian Ningning, who was covered in injuries. He frowned and asked the bearded middle-aged man next to him, "Steward Kai, what's going on?" Steward Kai looked at Kai Qing with anger on his face. He didn't expect his niece to get into trouble again while he was on duty. "Qing, why did you get into a conflict with someone while you were eating?" Just as Steward Kai finished speaking, many people walked out of the floating bamboo hall's entrance. There was a front desk on every floor of the Spirit Food Pavilion. 4 VIP areas on the 6th floor and above. One front desk only served the 2 VIP lounges on the same floor. Therefore, the front desk was not far from the VIP lounges. The sound of the vertical vase breaking was so loud that even the VIP lounge's soundproof door and screen entrances couldn't block it. Originally, this kind of sound wouldn't attract the attention of the rising and veteran forces in the floating bamboo hall, who were waiting for Kai Qing's return. However, the screams that followed the sound of the vase breaking attracted the attention of the younger generation of the rising and veteran forces in the floating bamboo hall. Only then did they open the door to check on the situation. In the end, an awkward scene appeared. The younger generation of the rising and veteran forces in the floating bamboo hall never expected that the sound of the vase breaking and the screams had something to do with Kai Qing, who had gone out to handle some matters. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that young Master Miao had arrived and was frowning. Clearly, young Master Miao was in a very bad mood. This time he probably didn't have any interest in eating. Damn Kai Qing. How could he not even handle such a small matter properly? Tian Ningning was sneakily attacked by Kai Qing and had hot pebbles splashed on her body. If she were an ordinary girl, she would have lost her head and burst into tears. But Tian Ningning didn't. Tian Ningning stared at Kai Qing, then ordered the crystal-horned stag through her mind power. The crystal-horned stag used all its strength to ram into Kai Qing. Kai Qing did not notice the movements of the crystal-horned stag, but the blunted-winged wild wolf that Kai Qing summoned did. The blunt-winged desolate wolf instinctively activated its skill, Wind Fang Shatter, and bit down on the crystal-horned stag's neck. Seeing this, De Wu glanced at Tian Ningning and then flipped his palm. A brown falcon species fei with 4 wings was summoned. This 4-winged falcon species fei set up an earth wall between the crystal-horned stag and the blunt-winged wild wolf. The crystal-horned stag and the blunt-winged wild wolf slammed into the mud wall, raising a sandstorm of dust. Upon seeing this, Steward Kai immediately shouted, "Enough!" He pointed at the two waiters and said, "Throw out the person who used phase to attack the customers and then detain that crystal-horned stag." Just as Steward Kai finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. Everyone saw an otherworldly white figure walking out of the Ime Hall. The third night watch would start at 8 a.m. and last for 6 hours. I've finally finished writing it. Good night, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 997. When Tian Ningning had just left, Lin Yuan didn't feel anything was wrong and thought that she was going to order food. Based on Lin Yuan's understanding of Tian Ningning's character, once she found out that he had bet money with the front desk, she would definitely discuss it with the Spirit Food Pavilion's front desk staff. She would definitely discuss with the Spirit Food Pavilion's front desk staff to return the money that he had bet. However, Lin Yuan, who was drinking cinnamon branch fish head soup while waiting for Tian Ningning in the Spirit Food Pavilion, felt that something was wrong after waiting for 5 minutes. Regardless of what Tian Ningning was doing outside the Ime Hall, she should have returned in 5 minutes. However, Lin Yuan wasn't thinking of leaving the Ime Hall to look for Tian Ningning. He thought that Tian Ningning had gone to the toilet. Lin Yuan didn't think that anything bad could happen in a place like the Spirit Food Pavilion. Lin Yuan frowned when he heard the faint cracking sound from outside. He carried Genius and prepared to leave the Ime Hall to ask the front desk staff to look for Tian Ningning. Before Lin Yuan could get up, he vaguely heard a scream. Upon hearing this scream, Lin Yuan's expression immediately turned dark. Based on the tone, Lin Yuan could tell that the scream was from Tian Ningning. Lin Yuan pushed open the Ime Hall's door and walked through the Spirit Food Pavilion's elegantly decorated corridor. He immediately saw Tian Ningning, whose back was facing him and whose clothes had multiple cuts. Even though it was cold and warm, Tian Ningning's physique wasn't considered good. Even though it was early spring, she was still wearing a thick windbreaker made of sheep wool. At that moment, blood was seeping out of the cuts on the thick camel-colored windbreaker. Tian Ningning was using her hands to cover her arms tightly and was trembling as though she might fall at any moment. Half of her body's camel-colored windbreaker already had many charred brown spots. It looked as though something extremely hot had landed on the camel-colored windbreaker and heated it. Lin Yuan had clearly heard the middle-aged man's words. The middle-aged man had ordered the waiters to throw out the person who had used a fey to attack the customers and to detain the crystal-horned stag. It was obvious that the person who had used a fey to attack the customers was Tian Ningning. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and walked forward with a cold expression. Upon hearing the footsteps behind her, Tian Ningning subconsciously turned around and immediately saw Lin Yuan. The instant she saw Lin Yuan, Tian Ningning's eyes, which were red from pain and anger, immediately surged with guilt. He had come out of Ime Hall to order a meal and encountered this troublesome matter. Now that Lin Yuan had walked out of the Yini Plum Hall, this troublesome matter had also implicated him. As a star web reporter, Tian Ningning naturally had to understand the various famous factions and their core members. Tian Ningning didn't know anyone who wasn't a core disciple of a veteran force like Kai Qing. However, Tian Ningning knew people like Miao He from the Beast Creation Garden of the Miao family, as well as the second young master of the Zheng family, Zheng Kaiyuan, who was a veteran force in Indigo Azure City. Tian Ningning hadn't expected that the person who had tried to kill her previously would have connections with a top force, the Beast Creation Garden. A few days ago he had been targeted by the younger generation of the various veteran and peak factions. Although Lin Yuan and Black were the same person, it was because of him. Now Lin Yuan had unknowingly made Lin Yuan go against the younger generation of the top and veteran factions. Upon seeing Tian Ningning's injuries, Lin Yuan waved his hand, and the jasmine lily's heel landed on her. Surging vitality poured into Tian Ningning's body, and her injuries rapidly healed. By using the jasmine lily's heal ability, pure vitality flowed through Tian Ningning's body. Lin Yuan finally knew how severe Tian Ningning's injuries were. Tian Ningning's arm and half of her body had suffered some unknown attack that had caused severe burns. A few of the burns were still on the open wounds. It was hard to imagine what kind of pain Tian Ningning had just endured. The blunt-winged wild wolf had been blocked by the earth elemental wall that De Wu had summoned. However, since Kai Qing hadn't issued an order to stop it, the blunt-winged wild wolf, which had a huge demand for blood, was prepared to continue attacking the crystal horned stag. Just as the blunt-winged wild wolf leaped up and pounced at the crystal horned stag with its mouth wide open, Lin Yuan executed Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, and punched the blunt-winged wild wolf. After receiving Lin Yuan's punch, the blunt-winged wild wolf crashed into the Spirit Food Pavilion's corridor wall with a loud bang. The frame of an embroidered picture of a pair of butterflies flying through a flowering peony was smashed. The incomparably precious embroidered picture of a pair of butterflies flying through a flowering peony fell to the ground. In the process of falling, the thin embroidered picture was cut open by the fragments of the hanging frame. The blunt-winged wild wolf also fell together with the embroidered picture. At that moment, the blunt-winged wild wolf looked rather strange. It was as though there was a lot of water in its wolf's skin. When it landed on the ground, it trembled twice like a ball. Lin Yuan hadn't held back his strength in that blow, so he had killed the Platinum Eye/Legend blunt-winged wild wolf with a single punch. The huge force had stirred all the tissues under the blunt-winged wild wolf's skin into liquid. At the same time, there was another miserable howl. Kai Qing squatted on the ground and held her head, her face pale. The blunt-winged wild wolf was Kai Qing's main contracted fae, and its death had damaged Kai Qing's spiritual energy. Steward Kai's expression was already as gloomy as water. He was extremely displeased with his niece Kai Qing. However, this didn't mean that Steward Kai would allow anyone to kill his niece's fae in front of him. The two attendants who were ordered by Steward Kai earlier did not step forward. Most of the people who worked at the Spirit Food Pavilion had some sort of background, so the waiters didn't want to personally carry out such an obvious bullying request. Now, with the sudden change of events, the two attendants simply stood where they were without moving. When a diner died or their contracted phase died, it was no longer something that an ordinary attendant like him could resolve. Steward Kai stared at Lin Yuan and spoke in a cold voice. If you kill someone else's contracted fae in the Spirit Food Pavilion, you will have to pay the price of blood. When Lin Yuan heard Steward Kai's words, he acted as though he didn't hear anything. He didn't even spare a trace of his gaze on Steward Kai, the rising factions, veteran factions, and the current number one of the Beast Creation Garden's younger generation, Miao He. Lin Yuan said softly to Tian Ningning, "Don't be afraid. I'm here for everything." When Tian Ningning, who had always been very strong, heard Lin Yuan's words, her tears fell like a broken necklace. Chapter 998. Tian Ningning, who had been raising her head stubbornly like a wolf cub, was after all a girl in her 20s. In his heart he was already terrified. When the rising and veteran factions disciples saw that Lin Yuan had killed Kai Qing's fae, they immediately entered a stupefied state. They then looked at Lin Yuan as though they were watching a good show. They wanted to see how Steward Kai would handle this matter. However, Miao He and Jing Kaiyuan, who were standing beside Steward Kai, broke out in cold sweat. Miao Zhua's soul had been injured by Zhou Ming's world power because of Lin Yuan, and he had been chased out of the Night Palace's outer palace. The Miao family's Miao Zhua and Miao Qi had been chased out of the Nix assembly and had not personally seen Lin Yuan standing beside the Moon Empress in the moonlight regal robe. However, he had also learned from Jing Kaiyuan and the other top factions that he had worked with that Lin Yuan, who had shown brilliantly in the S tournament, was the Moon Empress disciple. Miao He was grateful to Lin Yuan from the bottom of his heart. If it wasn't for Lin Yuan, he would still be pressed down by Miao Zhua. However, it seemed like he had unknowingly offended the Moon Empress disciple. Even if he didn't do anything, Kai Qing and the others had attacked Tian Ningning in the Spirit Food Pavilion because they wanted to treat him to a meal. Therefore, no matter what he did, he would not be able to clear his name. He would definitely be the scapegoat. Suddenly, Miao He thought of Jing Kaiyuan, who was beside him. For the past few days, Jing Kaiyuan had been treating himself as a friend of the Moon Empress disciple and had received great attention from his grandfather. There was also the phone number of the Moon Empress disciple. Thinking of this, Miao He bumped Jing Kaiyuan with his shoulder without leaving a trace. He used his eyes to convey his meaning. "Don't you know the Moon Empress disciple? Why don't you hurry up and say something?" Jing Kaiyuan felt even more guilty after being hit by Miao He. Jing Kaiyuan was still a little confused about how he had gotten Lin Yuan's phone number. However, Jing Kaiyuan understood that he couldn't retreat at this moment no matter what. Otherwise, even if Miao He took the blame, the Miao family would also know that he was not close to Lin Yuan. He thought about what he had done in the past few days as well as his mother, who was about to arrive at the Miao family in high spirits. Zheng Kaiyuan had no choice but to pluck up his courage and take a step forward. He cautiously and respectfully said, "Master Lin, you're also eating at the Spirit Food Pavilion. I've just arrived. I didn't expect to see you here." When Lin Yuan heard someone talking to him, he shifted his gaze away from Tian Ningning. He glared fiercely at the young masters of the major factions and Zheng Kaiyuan. When everyone saw Lin Yuan's sharp gaze, they felt their hearts tighten. Zheng Kaiyuan, who took a few steps forward, and Miao He, who was standing beside caretaker Kai, felt as though they were standing on the tip of a knife. Every time Lin Yuan looked at her, she felt as though there were thousands of sharp thorns stabbing at her from all directions, wanting to stab her into a bottomless abyss. However, Lin Yuan didn't respond to Zheng Kaiyuan's words. He just tilted his head and looked at Steward Kai coldly. "I don't know what kind of price the Spirit Food Pavilion has to pay to kill someone else's contracted fae. If I really have to pay a price, I can go to the Kitchen Incense Palace to ask for Lord Chef Supreme's forgiveness. But this blunt-winged desolate wolf wants to kill my friend's fae. This blunt-winged desolate wolf deserves death." The first half of Lin Yuan's statement infuriated Steward Kai, causing him to reveal a sneer. He was prepared to inform the Spirit Food Pavilion's bodyguards to make a move on Lin Yuan. However, the second half of Lin Yuan's statement caused Steward Kai's eyes to widen. He thought he had misheard. Did this youth say that he was going to personally go to the Kitchen Incense Palace to ask for Lord Chef Supreme's forgiveness? What kind of place was the Kitchen Incense Palace? Was the Kitchen Fragrance Palace a place that anyone could enter? Even if he could enter the Kitchen Incense Palace, how could he meet the Class 5 Creation Master, Lord Chef Supreme? However, Steward Kai immediately thought of how Zheng Kaiyuan addressed Lin Yuan. Zheng Kaiyuan addressed him as Lord. Steward Kai suddenly looked at Miao He's face when he thought of this. Steward Kai noticed that Miao He had a bitter expression, and there was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. When Steward Kai saw the situation, he silently cursed in his heart. Even though Miao He had been suppressed by Miao Zhuo to the point where he couldn't turn the tables, he was still abnormally overbearing when handling matters. He was someone who looked down on everyone. The expression on Miao He's face was obviously fearful. This kind of fear was like the expression of a cornered black-back mountain boar looking at a ferocious giant tiger. The members of the Rising and Veteran factions who had been called Big Wu and Big Brother Song by Kai Qing also gasped one after another. They looked at Lin Yuan with a different gaze. They were secretly guessing Lin Yuan's identity. After all, the younger generation of these Rising and non-top veteran factions didn't have the qualifications to inquire about the situation of the Dark Knight General Assembly. Naturally, they couldn't know Lin Yuan's identity. At the same time, Big Wu had secretly cursed Kai Qing over 100 times in his heart. Big Wu remembered that Kai Qing had sworn that the person in Imei Hall was just a Class 2-star web reporter and couldn't possibly know any big shots. In the end, this person that Kai Qing said couldn't possibly be any big shot could actually go to the Kitchen Incense Palace to personally apologize to Lord Chef Supreme. This was simply a connection between the heavens and the earth. It could even be said that he was completely on the same side as the Kitchen Incense Palace. Lin Yuan withdrew his gaze and looked at Tian Ningning. "What happened just now? How did you get hurt like this?" Tian Ningning originally didn't want to disturb Lin Yuan, but now that Lin Yuan already knew. Thus, Tian Ningning told her the whole story in detail. "The other side asked us to get out of Imei Hall. They want to connect Imei Hall and Floating Bamboo Hall together to invite some big shot. My injuries were first caused by the blunt-winged wild wolf's ability, and then someone put a plate of pebble python beef on my wounds." Hearing Tian Ningning's brief account, Lin Yuan's expression became even gloomier. The corner of his mouth, which had always been gentle, couldn't help but hang a trace of a sneer. At the same time as Tian Ningning's account, Miao He and Zheng Kaiyuan also had ugly expressions. This was because Miao He knew that he was the big shot that Kai Qing and the others wanted to invite to the banquet. Zheng Kaiyuan had just taken the initiative to talk to Lin Yuan, but Lin Yuan had been ignoring him. Lin Yuan's gaze toward him was very indifferent, as if he didn't know him. Moreover, Zheng Kaiyuan couldn't guess the relationship between Tian Ningning and Lin Yuan. If Tian Ningning and Lin Yuan were just ordinary friends, the people present might still be able to keep their lives. If Tian Ningning was Lin Yuan's girlfriend, they wouldn't be the only ones who would be finished. Their families would also be implicated in the disaster. Zheng Kaiyuan looked fiercely at Kai Qing, who was squatting on the ground with a pale face. If it wasn't for Kai Qing's viciousness, he might have been able to deepen his relationship with Lin Yuan after meeting him. Chapter 999. Lin Yuan was rarely so angry. Lin Yuan didn't expect that the burns on Tian Ningning's body were actually caused by the pebbles used to grill the pebble python beef. What kind of evil person would pour a 300 to 400 degrees Celsius stone on a heavily injured girl? In the past, Lin Yuan was very tolerant of most people and things, but there was a limit to his tolerance. Lin Yuan did not intend to tolerate this situation anymore. Lin Yuan waved his hand, and a red card with all kinds of exceptional fire patterns appeared in his hand. I heard from Zhongzhe that this card can open the Ethereal Peony Pavilion of the Spirit Food Pavilion. In the Ethereal Peony Pavilion, you can eat the secret 300 plates of Kitchen Incense Palace. Is that true? After saying that, Lin Yuan threw the card at Steward Kai. When Steward Kai received the card that Lin Yuan tossed over, his body started to shiver. The Spirit Food Pavilion rarely issued cards of the highest level, and each card had a serial number on it. The card that Lin Yuan had just tossed over was numbered 5. This number 5 card was the serial number of Zhongzhe, the youngest disciple of Chef Supreme of Kitchen Incense Temple. In other words, the card in his hand actually belonged to Zhongzhe. Steward Kai did not think that anyone could snatch this card from Zhongzhe's hands. For this card to appear in Lin Yuan's hands meant that Zhongzhe had personally given it to him. This card being used meant that the matter that happened before his eyes was completely not something that he, the steward of the fragrant kitchen pavilion, could carry out. Steward Kai said in a trembling voice, "Sir, you can. Do you need me to open the Peony Hall of Floating World now and let you order the 300 dishes in the murals in the Peony Hall of Floating World?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan sneered. Even if it's a sheep's temper, I'm afraid it can't eat anymore. I remember that among the 300 plates, there was a fire-thorn cooked stone eel. It was a main dish among the 300 plates. Someone invited my friend to eat the pebbles in the pebble python beef, so I'll invite him to eat the firethorn in the firethorn cooked eel. At that time, steward, you will personally serve the dishes for the person who invited my friend to eat the pebbles in the pebble python beef. Steward Kai's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. As the steward of the capital's spiritual food pavilion, he naturally had a deep understanding of the 300 plates of firethorn cooked eels. The firethorn in the firethorn cooked eel was the fruit of the platinum plant Fei geocentric thorn grass. The geocentric thorn grass grew in the interior of a volcano, and its living environment was over 800 degrees Celsius all year round. As the fruit of the geocentric thorn grass, the firethorn itself possessed an extremely high temperature. At the same time, it also possessed an extremely strong fire poison. The core of the firethorn cooked eel dish was to use the firethorn, which had a high temperature of 800 to 900 degrees, and the fire poison in it to neutralize the spiritual poison in the eel. In the end, the two poisons combined under high temperatures to form a medicinal effect that was very beneficial to the muscles and bones. It could be said that delicacies like the cobblestone python beef, which needed to be cooked after the dish was served, had the same principle as cooking eels with firethorn. However, the lethality of the firethorns was not something that could be compared to a pebble that had been roasted by a heavenly flame to 300 degrees Celsius. If the firethorns landed on a person's body, they would probably burn through their flesh. Even if there was a powerful healing-type spirit chi professional to heal them afterward, the firethorns would probably burn through their flesh. The burned area would also form a purplish-black mark due to the accumulation of fire poison. In such a situation, Steward Kai didn't have the right to say no. "Why, my lord, I will get someone to prepare it now." Kai Qing had already faintly recovered from her spiritual injury. Previously, Kai Qing's spiritual injury was so painful that she couldn't move, but she could still hear the words around her clearly. Kai Qing sat on the ground in a daze. Kai Qing, who was used to being ruthless to others, felt like a fish on a chopping board for the first time. Soon enough, Steward Kai carried the 300 plates of firethorn cooked eel to Lin Yuan and said with a trembling voice, "My lord, the firethorn cooked eel that you ordered is ready." Lin Yuan glanced at Kai Qing and said, "My lord, the firethorn cooked eel that you ordered is ready." Lin Yuan glanced at Kai Qing and said, "My lord, the fire thorn cooked eel that you ordered is ready. Since this lady wants us to get lost from the Imei Hall, it means that this lady really wants to eat in the Imei Hall. Then let's satisfy this lady's wish. Send her to the Imei Hall to slowly enjoy the stewed eel." Steward Kai glanced at Kai Qing and said to the two attendants behind him, "The two of you drag Kai Qing to the Imei Hall. The two of you drag Kai Qing to the Imei Hall." After speaking, Steward Kai bowed and said to Lin Yuan, "My lord, I guarantee that I'll see her eat every single one of the firethorn on the plate." After seeing Kai Qing and Steward Kai enter Imei Hall, Lin Yuan's gaze landed on Jing Kaiyuan. Lin Yuan took 2 steps forward and placed his hand on Jing Kaiyuan's shoulder. "What? Are you eating with them too?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Jing Kaiyuan hurriedly answered, "I'm here to eat with my cousin today. These people are treating my cousin. I just didn't have a place to eat, so I followed my cousin to the Spirit Food Pavilion to have a bite. I didn't expect to meet Brother Lin here." Jing Kaiyuan had just been frightened by Lin Yuan's means. Now that Lin Yuan had taken the initiative to talk to him, Jing Kaiyuan immediately became excited. This meant that Lin Yuan still recognized him. At the same time, Jing Kaiyuan hurriedly removed himself from this matter. He did not want Lin Yuan to think that he had a share in this floating bamboo hall's meal. To be honest, Jing Kaiyuan didn't know many of the rising and veteran forces' younger generation present. As long as Lin Yuan investigated a little, he would be able to find out. Upon hearing Jing Kaiyuan's words, Miao He's face immediately turned ugly. Back then he had not wanted to bring Jing Kaiyuan to the Spirit Food Pavilion's gathering. It was Jing Kaiyuan who wanted to put on airs and forced him to bring him. In the end, Jing Kaiyuan had cleanly removed himself and did not forget to mention Miao He's name. Jing Kaiyuan was simply too disgusting. When Lin Yuan heard Jing Kaiyuan address him as Brother Lin, a hint of killing intent emerged in his eyes. Previously, Lin Yuan had not put in the effort to target the Jing family. Now it was time to permanently remove this trouble. After addressing Lin Yuan as Brother Lin, Jing Kaiyuan felt very perturbed. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan did not refute him, Jing Kaiyuan boldly continued to address him. "Brother Lin, I have some things to do recently. I have to settle the grudge between me and Sky City. That's why I haven't called you. I'll settle the grudge with Sky City in a few days. I wonder if you have time, Brother Lin. Can I bring a small gift to visit Brother Lin?" Lin Yuan's eyes flickered when he heard Jing Kaiyuan's words. "Huh? Sky City?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan mention Sky City, Jing Kaiyuan hurriedly replied, "Sky City's people killed my subordinates previously. The people from Sky City killed my subordinates. I'm going to send someone to challenge Sky City at the Polar Arena in the royal capital. Get rid of Sky City through the Pole Arena." The 3rd chapter. Hehe, this book is finally at the 1000th chapter. Asking for a wave of recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, full subscriptions and tips. I hope everyone can support button. We'll love you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 1000. Lin Yuan knew about the Radiance Federation's Extreme Arena. Not only the royal capital, but the major cities in the Radiance Federation also had a place that specialized in handling faction grudges. This place was the Extreme Arena. After all, the population in the big cities was very dense and many ordinary people lived there. Even when king-class experts fought with each other, as long as one side was not crushed by the other, they would instantly lose their resistance. Could cause a great impact. Therefore, the major factions experts were not allowed to fight in private in the big cities. Of course, there were exceptions. If the experts of the two factions fought in the royal capital, it would not cause a bad impact. The Spirit Guards and the Iron Law Institution could not be bothered. Lin Yuan had just decided to completely get rid of the Jing family, the enemy that had been established since Sky City was established. He did not expect Jing Kaiyuan to have already decided how to attack Sky City. Actually, this was within Lin Yuan's expectations. After all, Lin Yuan had called Jing Kaiyuan at the Nix assembly to make Jing Kaiyuan arrogant. Lin Yuan looked at Jing Kaiyuan, who was abnormally respectful and fawning toward him, and the corners of his mouth curled up inexplicably. The Extreme Arena requires both sides to agree to participate in the Extreme Arena. If Sky City doesn't agree to participate in the Extreme Arena, won't your preparations be in vain? Jing Kaiyuan narrowed his eyes, which revealed a ruthless glint. Brother Lin, given your status, I don't think you will spend time on the extreme arena between factions. You probably don't know the rules of this extreme arena. Most of the extreme arena agreed upon between factions are gambling. The Spirit Guards and the Iron Law Institution are the witnesses, and the two major factions sign a bet. Finally, they will send out experts to fight. The losing party needs to complete the agreement with the other party according to the contents of the bet. This kind of gambling extreme arena is the most common way for the major factions to use force to solve problems. After all, it is very difficult for two factions with comparable strength to kill the other party in a faction struggle. However, I think the agreement with Sky City is not the common gambling extreme arena between factions, but the Blood Oath extreme arena. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes, which revealed an inexplicable look. When Zheng Kaiyuan saw the look in Lin Yuan's eyes, he suddenly felt like he was being stared at by a dangerous behemoth. There was a strong sense of oppression in his heart. Lin Yuan did not have any research on the Radiance Federation's pole arena, but the diligent genius had been absorbing all kinds of knowledge on the Star Web. Therefore, Lin Yuan was very clear about the Bet Extreme Fight and the Blood Oath Extreme Fight. The Bet of Extremity duel could be seen as the two sides using force to negotiate, using force to solve problems that couldn't be solved through negotiation and resource wars. Under normal circumstances, it was very rare for members of both factions to die in a bet. However, the Blood Oath Extreme Battle was completely different. The Blood Oath Extreme Battle would only end when the members of one side were all dead. When all the members sent out for the Blood Oath Extreme Battle were killed, it proved that this faction was weak in terms of peak strength. Moreover, the Blood Oath Extreme Battle itself symbolized that the battle between the two forces could not be resolved. Hence, in the Blood Oath Extreme Battle, all the resources of the faction whose peak combat power was wiped out would be taken over by the other faction. The Iron Law Institute used the method of blood oaths in the extreme arena to mediate the conflicts between the major powers. It could be said that 2/3 of the Radiance Federation's factions had disappeared in the pole arena. The pole arena was like a huge meat grinder that constantly devoured the lives of the experts between the factions. However, it was also because of the existence of the pole arena that the war between the factions would not threaten the safety of ordinary people. The Blood Oath Extreme Battle is a little interesting, but I remember that when one side issued the Blood Oath Extreme Battle, the other side can also choose not to accept it. Zheng Kaiyuan had mentioned his plan for Sky City just to find an excuse to talk to Lin Yuan. He didn't expect Lin Yuan to be quite interested in what he had to say. Zheng Kaiyuan's heart was immediately greatly encouraged. In Zheng Kaiyuan's opinion, only by talking a few more words with Lin Yuan could his relationship with Lin Yuan improve further. Please don't worry, I have absolute confidence that Sky City will accept the Blood Oath Extreme Battle. If Sky City doesn't accept the Blood Oath Extreme Battle, it will lose all its reputation. In the future, no faction will dare to cooperate with Sky City. Even if Sky City decides to be a coward and not come out, I've already grasped its roots. If the Sky Castle is so cowardly, I'll start from the roots and uproot the entire Sky Castle. Zheng Kaiyuan did not say what the root of Sky City was, but Lin Yuan felt that he should be talking about the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Before the start of the Evernight Assembly, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had been disturbed by the Zheng family's spies. Of course, these spies were all cleaned up by Duan He in the process of investigating the Spirit Deer Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yuan felt that Zheng Kaiyuan's statement was rather interesting. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had never been the root of Sky City. It was just an exposed branch of the big tree that was Sky City. However, Zheng Kaiyuan's idea had solved a lot of Lin Yuan's problems. Through the Blood Oath Extreme Duel, Lin Yuan could also kill the Zheng family's experts. Instead, they would occupy Zheng Kaiyuan's resources. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan was considering his words, Zheng Kaiyuan's eyes flickered as he gathered his courage and asked, "Brother Lin, would it be possible for you to attend the Blood Oath battle between the Zheng family and Sky City?" Lin Yuan glanced sideways at Zheng Kaiyuan and asked, "I remember you are the second young master of the Zheng family, right? Can you stand out and make a decision for the Zheng family?" Zheng Kaiyuan hurriedly said, "My father didn't agree at first and he didn't allow me to attack Sky City. Didn't I borrow 2 Pinnacle Emperor-class experts from the Miao family who possess 2 Pinnacle Myth 3 phase? I even convinced my father to ask my grandfather to join the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. My grandfather also has a Pinnacle Myth 3 Fae. Let's see how Sky City can block such strength. Jing Kaiyuan, who had been extremely inflated recently, could not help but reveal a touch of madness even in front of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan curled his lips when he heard Jing Kaiyuan's words. Previously he had only heard of cheating the father, but he had never heard of cheating the master. No matter how powerful a peak emperor was, if one didn't reach the overlord realm, they wouldn't be able to fight against Endless Summer and the Killer Butterfly. There was a huge gap between emperor level and emperor level. Lin Yuan said to Jing Kaiyuan meaningfully, "Don't worry. I won't be going to the extreme arena. There won't be any emperor-class combat power, so it'll be boring. I'll have time in a few days. You can visit the manor at any time after the Blood Oath Extreme battle." The first one was even worse. End of chapter. Chapter 1001. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Jing Kaiyuan revealed an ecstatic expression. Miao He, who was standing at the back, looked at Jing Kaiyuan with resentment and fear. Miao He was already suspicious of Jing Kaiyuan's relationship with Lin Yuan. Miao He didn't think that Jing Kaiyuan could be related to the Moon Empress disciple given his status. If Jing Kaiyuan wasn't Miao Jisheng's son, Miao He wouldn't even look at him. After all, Pinnacle Faction's younger generation core members didn't even bother to interact with veteran faction's descendants. However, Jing Kaiyuan had such a good relationship with the Moon Empress disciple, but he didn't plead for leniency for him and even stepped on him. What kind of demon cousin is this? Miao He had already made up his mind that if he could survive this calamity, even if Jing Kaiyuan was still appreciated by his grandfather in the Miao family, he had to be absolutely irreconcilable with Jing Kaiyuan. Moreover, Jing Kaiyuan had mentioned 2 experts with Pinnacle Myth 3 phase. One of them was his elder brother's path protector, and the other was his path protector. Now they seemed to have become Jing Kaiyuan's subordinates. Miao He had always been arrogant and looked down on others. Even if Miao He was afraid of the punishment he was about to receive, he still looked at Jing Kaiyuan with hatred. Miao He felt that he had been wronged. Putting aside the fact that he didn't do anything, he still had to watch Jing Kaiyuan act. Jing Kaiyuan's surname wasn't Miao. Even if his grandfather valued him, he was still a veteran faction's descendant. However, Jing Kaiyuan's words made people think that Jing Kaiyuan was like the Gao family's Gao Feng, who had been accepted as a disciple by Her Majesty. Jing Kaiyuan originally wanted to talk more with Lin Yuan so that Lin Yuan would have a deeper impression of him. He didn't expect to receive Lin Yuan's invitation to visit the mansion at any time. In Jing Kaiyuan's opinion, this was a great honor. Moreover, wasn't his grandfather thinking about how to apologize to Lin Yuan in exchange for the golden lotus brocade stock that was of great help to creation masters? If he went to the mansion and settled the matter, then he might directly join the Miao family's elder council in the Beast Creation Garden. By then he could openly use the Miao family's resources to promote the Jing family from a veteran faction to a pinnacle faction. Jing Kaiyuan, who was scheming in his heart, did not know that Lin Yuan was also scheming in his heart. The only thought in his mind now was to take advantage of the Blood Oath Extreme Duel to obtain a few law crystals at the pinnacle of Myth 3 that were suitable for him. In that case he would soon obtain the opportunity to enter the next world with complete laws. No matter what, the Jing family was an old force that had been developing for 100 years. If Sky City could take over the offline resources of the Jing family, they could absorb the useful resources and dispose of the useless ones. Sky City would be able to quickly obtain a huge amount of materials and resources, and achieve great development. The Jing family's function was in the luxury goods direction, which coincided with the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's function. It could help the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce expand its luxury goods resources. Lin Yuan patted Jing Kaiyuan's shoulder as a form of encouragement. Even though the doors of Immerse Hall were closed, everyone could still hear the faint cries of pain. Everyone thought of Kai Qing eating the fire thorns in the room and felt their hair stand on end. Because no one could imagine what would happen to a person after eating a fire thorn. After a long time, Immerse Hall's door was opened. Steward Kai walked over with a delicate plate with no fire thorns but only stone eel slices. He was sweating and trembling. Sir, Kai Qing has already finished all the fire thorns in the fire thorn cooked stone eel. While speaking, Steward Kai saw the noble-looking youth in front of him pull up the corners of his mouth into a slightly cold arc. He said in a clear voice, "Since Kai Qing has eaten all the fire thorns, you shall eat the remaining stone eel slices." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Steward Kai felt his knees go weak. The stone eel slices on the plate were not cooked and had not absorbed enough fire poison to neutralize the neurotoxins in them. Thus, the stone eel meat still had a powerful mental poison. If he ate it, would it still be good? Upon seeing the expression on Steward Kai's face, Lin Yuan frowned again. A feeling of disgust arose in his heart. Steward Kai looked very similar to Kai Qing, and they should be blood-related. Of course, it didn't matter if they were blood-related or not. When Tian Ningning was almost half dead by Kai Qing, Steward Kai had mercilessly thrown her out. He even wanted to detain Tian Ningning's fei. His actions were no different from Kai Qing's. Seeing that Steward Kai was trembling and not moving, Lin Yuan ignored him and looked at Miao He. I, Lin Yuan, have always believed in this saying. If there is a mistake, bear it yourself. Don't implicate your family. Miao He wasn't the only one who heard Lin Yuan's words. Even the younger generation of the rising and veteran factions, who knew that Lin Yuan had an extraordinary identity, let out a breath of relief in their hearts. No matter what, the consequences of this matter had ended when it came to him. No matter how severe the punishment was, it would not implicate the faction behind him. Lin Yuan looked at Tian Ningning and asked, "They injured you. They hurt you. What are you going to do?" Tian Ningning felt that Lin Yuan was extremely handsome. As a girl, Tian Ningning didn't think that Kai Qing would end up badly. If it wasn't for Lin Yuan, Tian Ningning didn't dare to imagine what would have happened to her. If she had been thrown out, the crystal horned stag might not have survived either. Lin Yuan, only Kai Qing and Steward Kai injured me. It's not anyone else's fault. Before you came out, this person even helped me block an attack from the blunt-winged wild wolf. Otherwise, my crystal-horned stag might have been bitten to death by the blunt-winged wild wolf. Therefore, I just need Kai Qing and Steward Kai to pay the price. Lin Yuan didn't say anything, but the way he looked at Tian Ningning was more appreciative than before. It was an extremely rare quality to still maintain one's original heart in such a situation. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the youth with the flat nose whom Tian Ningning had pointed at earlier speak. "Why don't we leave our contact information with young Lady Tian? If young Lady Tian thinks of how to punish us, or if you need anything, just give us a call. If there is anything we can do or need to do, just give us an order and we will do our best to complete it." Tian Ningning's eyes lit up. The second was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 1002. There were 20 to 30 young masters in front of him, and they were from both new and old forces. There was also Miao He, who came from a top force. Now that these people had given him their contact information, his information channels would be greatly expanded in the future. It would also help him better as Black's exclusive reporter, as well as his identity as the team's reporter. Alright, then leave your phone numbers with me. You didn't attack me in the first place, so you don't owe me anything. I only hope that when I contact you for some information in the future, you can tell me a thing or two. After saying that, Tian Ningning shook the second-class Star Web Reporter badge hanging on her chest to show everyone that she was a Star Web reporter. Everyone looked at Tian Ningning with gratitude in their eyes. He felt that Tian Ningning was his second parent. Everyone enthusiastically added Tian Ningning's phone number and told her their phone number. He planned to repay Tian Ningning's kindness to the best of his ability in the future when Tian Ningning needed his help. If Lin Yuan had looked at Tian Ningning with admiration before, then he now felt that Tian Ningning had an ability that was very similar to listen. That was the use of interpersonal relationships. Tian Ningning could imperceptibly turn enemies or strangers into her own resources. With these resources, Tian Ningning's future development in Star Web would definitely improve. After Tian Ningning added everyone's phone numbers, Lin Yuan noticed that Steward Kai still didn't dare to reach for the stone eel slices on his plate. Lin Yuan glanced at Miao He, who was looking at Jing Kaiyuan with a gloomy gaze. "Since they invited you to this party, you should take some responsibility for this conflict." Miao He's heart thumped. He originally thought that he had escaped a calamity, but he didn't expect to be called out by the Moon Empress disciple. At this moment, Miao He's hatred for Jing Kaiyuan almost reached its peak. Miao He felt that if Xing Kaiyuan had not deliberately mentioned it, he would not have been called out again. Lin Yuan's identity was there and he was the true son of heaven. Thus, Miao He didn't dare to have any negative emotions, let alone hate Lin Yuan. These negative emotions were automatically transferred to Xing Kaiyuan by Miao He. Miao He quickly bowed and braced himself. Lord Lin Yuan, I came to attend the banquet after receiving news of the invitation. I didn't expect such a thing to happen. If you want me to take responsibility, I'm willing to take any punishment. At the same time, I can also give a large amount of resources to Miss Tian as compensation. Lin Yuan nodded in response. You can talk to Tian Ningning about this in private. You've seen everything that happened in the Spirit Food Pavilion. I'll leave it to you to explain to the Spirit Food Pavilion. After speaking, Lin Yuan glanced at Steward Kai and continued speaking to Miao He. I'm sure you'll be able to handle the rest, right? Upon hearing that, Miao He immediately understood Lin Yuan's meaning and hurriedly replied, That's right. Don't worry, my lord. If some people eat less of what they should eat, not only will they fail to live up to my lord's good intentions, but they will also fail to live up to the famous 300 plates of kitchen incense palace. Leave everything here to me. Lin Yuan ignored Miao He and left the Spirit Food Pavilion with the remaining money after settling the bill with Tian Ningning at the front desk. On the way to the mansion, Lin Yuan saw that Tian Ningning kept looking at him as though she had a lot of questions but didn't know how to ask. Lin Yuan said, If you have anything to ask, just ask. There's no need to keep it in your heart. It's still the same thing I said during the meal. Say everything you know and don't hold back. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning no longer hesitated and hurriedly asked the questions in her heart. I wonder if it's convenient for you to tell me why so many of the younger generation of the veteran factions and top factions are speaking up for your original identity and attacking your identity as the combat class Spirit Chi professional black? Upon hearing Tian Ningning's question, Lin Yuan raised his brows. Lin Yuan knew that Tian Ningning would ask this. This question was also what Lin Yuan intended to tell Tian Ningning when he looked for her this time. It's because they found out who my master is during the Nix conference. Upon hearing that, Tian Ningning immediately became curious. Let alone a Class 2 reporter like Tian Ningning, even the few Class 5 reporters on Star Web did not have the qualifications to interview the Nix conference. Thus, the Nix assembly was incomparably mysterious to Tian Ningning. However, Tian Ningning knew that those who were qualified to enter the Nix assembly were at least core members of the younger generation of top veteran factions. Tian Ningning had already guessed that Black or Lin Yuan's identity was extraordinary. It was obvious just by looking at the contracted phase. Even if an ordinary person was talented enough to comprehend a willpower rune, they would not be able to obtain a silver/fantasy breed healing type Fey. However, Tian Ningning simply couldn't think or didn't dare to think about Lin Yuan's master's identity. Even the direct descendants of the top force's younger generation were so afraid of him. At that moment, Tian Ningning recalled the person who had spoken up for them on Star Web. It was the person who had been verified as the young palatial lord of Yeong Palace. At that time, Tian Ningning only thought that Long Tao had used his connections to ask the young palace master of Yeong Palace to speak for him. But now it seemed that the young palatial lord of Night End Palace probably knew Lin Yuan. Tian Ningning said half-jokingly, Haha, your master can't be the Moon Empress, right? As soon as the words left her mouth, Tian Ningning felt that her words were a little rude. How could the Moon Empress casually joke about it? Even if this joke didn't have any evil intentions. Before Tian Ningning could retort, she saw Lin Yuan nod and smile brightly, revealing his white teeth. Lin Yuan's smile directly crashed into Tian Ningning's heart. It made Tian Ningning subconsciously think that Lin Yuan's appearance seemed to be more capable of fighting than his strength. At that moment, Tian Ningning saw Lin Yuan nod and say, That's right. My master is the Moon Empress. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Tian Ningning, who was riding on Blackie's back, nearly slipped and fell off Blackie's back. After knowing Lin Yuan's identity, Tian Ningning didn't say a word along the way. She had a sluggish expression as she digested the information that Lin Yuan provided. Tian Ningning suddenly felt that this world was a little mystical. How did I suddenly become the exclusive reporter of the Moon Empress disciple? After digesting for a moment, Tian Ningning suddenly raised her head and looked at Lin Yuan with burning eyes. It could be said that after today's contact, Blackie had become more realistic and three-dimensional in Tian Ningning's heart. Back then, that low-profile little hero who had commanded the Sea of Flowers in Millstone Town actually had such an illustrious identity. Chapter 3. End of this chapter. Chapter 1003. As Tian Ningning lamented Lin Yuan's identity, she felt a sense of pressure in her heart. As the Moon Empress Disciples' exclusive reporter, Tian Ningning felt that she still had many areas to improve. After returning to the mansion, Lin Yuan asked Wen Yu to settle Tian Ningning down and introduce her to everyone in the mansion. Tian Ningning followed Zhang Xiaobai and the others to the Dome Guild Club's location and began to understand the Guild Club's current situation. He was going to solve the possible negative impact of them jumping from the Extreme Guild Club to the Dome Guild Club on Starweb. Lin Yuan looked at the time. Just as he was about to enter the Spirit Lock spatial zone to enhance the snake phase for his new daughter, Wendy, to Bronze/Legend, Listen and Hu Quan walked in from outside. Listen hurriedly took 2 steps forward, took out a phase storage box and handed it to Lin Yuan. Young master, these are 50 questions beasts that Qin Lun gave me. He said that you need them. Listen was a little puzzled. The 100 questions beasts in the phase storage box were not in good condition and had mixed fur. Even some ordinary people were not willing to buy such 100 questions beasts as their housekeeping beast. Why did Lin Yuan want 50 of them? Listen could not imagine what use Lin Yuan had for these 100 questions beast. Listen felt that this phase storage box of the 100 questions beast was quite lucky. No matter how humble their origins were, their fate had changed when they reached Lin Yuan's level. Lin Yuan reached out to take the phase storage box that contained the 100 questions beast. Listen, take Qin Lun and Qin Yu with you for a while. Let Qin Lun have a good experience. In addition, Qin Yu is now 12 or 13 years old, which is the age to go to school. However, Qin Yu has no foundation at all, so it is not realistic to go to school directly. Find a full-time teacher for Qin Yu and let him tutor him for a year. Alright, he will have a good foundation next year and go to the royal capital's low-class Spirit Qi Academy. Lin Yuan had already decided to accept Qin Lun and Qin Yu, so he naturally had to consider their development. Although Qin Lun ran a phase store and knew the ways of the world, it was not the same as knowledge. Qin Lun had been working hard in the store and rarely came into contact with the outside world, which was equivalent to having a thin veil covering his eyes. Lin Yuan asked Listen to take off the veil in front of Qin Lun's eyes. Sometimes knowledge was far more important than strength. Anyway, he had not found the rare and precious extreme night jade scorpion for Qin Lun and Qin Yu, so Qin Lun could not improve his strength even if he wanted to. Qin Yu was still young, so going to school at this age was undoubtedly the best choice. It wouldn't be too late to talk about other things after he grew up. Listen nodded in response. Don't worry, young master. I will definitely take care of these matters. It's just that Qin Yu is 12 or 13 years old. It's a little too old for him to take the first-year exam for the royal capital's low-rank Spirit Qi Academy. If Qin Yu is willing to endure hardship and learn more knowledge in this 1 year, he can directly go to the royal capital's Spirit Qi Academy's 4th-year examination. This can ensure that Qin Yu is surrounded by people of the same age, and Qin Yu can also better integrate into the group. When Lin Yuan heard Listen's suggestion, he felt that it made sense. In a low-class Spirit Qi Academy where there were many children, children's words carried no harm. As a transfer student, Qin Yu was likely to be ostracized and isolated by his classmates, regardless of whether he was too old or too young. Given Qin Yu's character, which had been shaped by the pressure of survival at such a young age, even if he was isolated, he would only endure it. This was likely to cause Qin Yu's originally cheerful personality to become unsociable. If such a thing really happened, it would go against Lin Yuan's original intention of letting Qin Yu study at the royal capital's intermediate Spirit Qi Academy. Therefore, Listen's suggestion of a 4th year was indeed Qin Yu's best choice. Now that the matter was handed over to Listen to handle, Lin Yuan was very assured that Listen was reliable. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Hu Quan chuckle. Lin Yuan, according to what you said a few days ago, I have carefully selected 500 spirit craftsmen from the Heavenly Craft Pavilion. After I told them about my request to live in seclusion, only 35 brats decided to participate. Later on, when I said that I had secluded myself from the world for 10 years, quite a few brats were tempted. In the end, there were about 130 people. In the end, after I mentioned the benefits you offered, all the little bastards rushed to participate. In the end, according to your request, I only chose the little bastards who immediately decided to participate after I said that I would live in seclusion. When the Heavenly Craft Pavilion accepted people, I passed these spirit craftsmen's abilities. Some of the little bastards who decided to participate at the beginning were weak and some were older. But they are loyal and worth nurturing. Last night I asked these people to prepare the items needed for the seclusion. These people are now gathered in the Heavenly Craft Pavilion. If young master needs them, I can bring them over at any time. In fact, through Lin Yuan's request to choose spirit craftsman Hu Quan, a class 5 spirit craftsman who had devoted himself to studying spirit craftsmanship, had a feeling in his heart. Ability was not as important as loyalty. Through this choice, Hu Quan divided the Heavenly Craft Pavilion's more than 500 spirit craftsmen into several grades in his heart. This grade wasn't based on ability, but on the degree of loyalty. Hu Quan planned to nurture the first batch of 35 spirit craftsmen who had chosen to live in seclusion in the future. Hu Quan planned to observe the second batch of spirit craftsmen who had come forward. As for the more than 300 spirit craftsmen who had not been willing to live in seclusion at first but had chosen to live in seclusion after learning of Lin Yuan's generous conditions, Hu Quan intended to give up on nurturing them. He would only teach them some basic things, and the Heavenly Craft Pavilion's tedious work would be handed over to these people. As a Class 5 spirit craftsman, no matter how skilled Hu Quan was, he would not be able to be the teacher of 500 spirit craftsmen at one time. Compared to casting a wide net in the past, Hu Quan decided to settle down and nurture loyal little bastards. Anyway, the Heavenly Craft Pavilion's spirit craftsmen were paid for their work, and the salary was higher than that of spirit craftsmen who took on part-time jobs outside. It was not a bad deal for those little bastards who he did not intend to guide but were working in the Heavenly Craft Pavilion. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he heard Hu Quan's words. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and said, "That's right." He thought for a moment and said, "Then Uncle Hu, bring these 35 spirit craftsmen over. Since they have already prepared the items needed for seclusion, the earlier they work, the earlier they can start the construction of the swamp world. In addition, prepare more building materials for building houses, fey breeding bases, breeding rooms and other basic and functional facilities." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, Listen hurriedly became serious and asked, "First more." End of this chapter. Chapter 1004. Young Master, the materials used to build the infrastructure are fine, but do you have any requirements for the materials used to build the functional areas? Lin Yuan said after thinking for a moment. The materials used to build functional buildings don't have to be expensive or hard, but they must be strong and durable. In addition, whether it's the materials used to build the infrastructure or the materials used to build the functional buildings, it's best to use anti-corrosive metals at the silver grade or above. The water vapor content in the swamp world is extremely high. It has a much higher oxygen content than the origin world. Therefore, metals below the silver grade are likely to be oxidized and rusted if they are stored in the swamp world for a long period of time. Using silver and below spirit materials to build an old building in the swamp world is equivalent to building a tofu dregs project that are not durable. After Listen carefully recorded Lin Yuan's request, he said confidently, "That's right. Young Master, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce has been dealing in luxury goods resources. However, with Fei Qianxiang's cooperation, the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce has already sold all non-luxury resources offline channels. It changed from a comprehensive chamber of commerce to a chamber of commerce specializing in luxury goods. The offline resources that the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce dumped have been firmly controlled by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, the resources that Young Master mentioned should be ready by tonight. When the time comes, I will have someone send it over to Young Master." Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. Lin Yuan had chosen to accept Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce while facing the Zheng family's pressure because of Listen's social skills. On the other hand, it was also because of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's functions. Now Lin Yuan realized how delicious the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's functions were. Without the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, he would need to hoard a lot of materials on StarWeb if he wanted to secretly develop the swamp world. Even if these materials were sold on StarWeb, It would still take him half a day to buy 100 of them one by one. Now all this effort was saved. Lin Yuan suddenly thought of Zheng Keiyun's words in the spirit food pavilion, and his expression turned slightly cold as he spoke to Listen. Listen, activate all the funds you have and try to expand your manpower. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's sudden request, Listen was slightly stunned, not understanding what his request meant. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had entered a state of rapid development. He had already finished recruiting people. There were no more and no less. If they were to expand their manpower now, the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce would have more idle people. After all, the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's business was not that big. However, Listen also knew that since Lin Yuan had made such a request, he naturally considered Lin Yuan's handwriting. All right, young master. I'll return to the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce in a while to expand the manpower. With Fei Qianxiang's mind control King Gu, even the newly recruited people can guarantee the minimum loyalty. After developing his faction for so long, he naturally knew the importance of loyalty. Using Fei Qianxiang's mind-controlling King Gu to control the newly recruited people of the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce did not sound good. However, as long as these people were not enemies and did not have bad intentions, the mind control King Gu would never take effect. These newly recruited people would not be affected in the slightest. Now that the Zheng family wanted to carry out a blood oath extreme duel with Sky City, they had their eyes on the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Lin Yuan smiled faintly as he looked at Listen, who had a puzzled look on his face but did not ask any questions. I'm trying my best to expand manpower because the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce has a big plate to take over in a few days. This plate is 100 times larger than the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce, which has just been promoted to a new faction. If there's no one, we won't be able to take this plate. After talking with Hu Quan, he returned to the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. He was preparing to deal with and strengthen the 50 questions beasts he had bought from Qinluan. When Genius saw Lin Yuan taking out the Fei storage box that contained 50 questions beasts, it meowed and spoke in a childish voice. Lin Yuan, Songming is a little nervous. Songming is going to be a teacher soon. When Lin Yuan saw Genius' nervous and expectant expression, he used his hand to gently scratch Genius' little nose. Smart, then do you have the determination to be a good teacher? Genius meowed. Lin Yuan, Songming will definitely do its best to teach those 50 questions beast. Through the interconnection tale, I want them to grasp the knowledge as quickly as possible. Upon hearing Genius' words, Lin Yuan immediately released the 50 questions beasts from the Fei storage box. These 50 questions beasts had all been bathed by Qinluan yesterday, so their fur now looked very fluffy and clean. Lin Yuan could see that these 50 questions beasts were either pure or had messy mottled fur. Either that or there were stripes on their bodies, but there were many cracks on these stripes. In short, these 50 questions beasts were inferior goods from the Fei market. Even though they weren't as pathetic as Genius, they weren't in a much better state. When Lin Yuan and Genius were looking at these 50 questions beasts, these 50 questions beasts were also looking at Lin Yuan and Genius timidly. The 100 questions beast's intelligence wasn't inferior to that of a human's from the moment Lin Yuan bought it. From the moment Lin Yuan bought them, these 50 questions beasts knew that this human youth in front of them would be their future owner. While the 100 questions beasts were apprehensive, they were abnormally joyful as they breathed in the pure spirit qi in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Pure spirit qi was a fatal attraction to any Fei. It was naturally the same for the 100 questions beast. What happened next caused Genius to use its tail to cover its eyes. Lin Yuan saw that the fur on the 50 questions beasts' bodies had suddenly fallen off. Subsequently, new fur started to grow on their bodies and the cycle repeated itself. When the 100 questions beasts stopped losing fur, Lin Yuan realized that he didn't do anything and was just relying on the pure spirit qi in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. These 50 questions beasts had already transformed. These 50 questions beasts' grade and quality didn't increase. However, these 50 questions beasts' fur had already fallen off, and during the growth process, they had transformed into the most elite appearance. When he saw this scene, Lin Yuan knew that the pure spirit qi had caused the 100 questions beast's genetic model to evolve. From this, Lin Yuan could see how sensitive Feis like the 100 questions beasts were to pure spirit qi. The 50 questions beasts also noticed the changes in their bodies. They meowed a few times and bowed forward. Afterward, their bodies sprawled on the ground. Lin Yuan knew that this was the 100 Questions beasts as feline phase, expressing their loyalty and closeness. Upon seeing the situation, Lin Yuan said to these 100 Questions beasts, "After I buy all of you, we will be one big family. After I buy all of you will be one big family. I will enhance all of you and increase your grade and quality. Genius will also impart knowledge to you." End of this chapter. Chapter 1005. In a while I will build a giant cat tree in the Spirit Lock spatial zone for all of you. You can rest on the cat tree. If you are hungry, go and eat the soldier rations over there. The 100 Questions beasts didn't expect that they would be able to live in such an environment in the future. Thank you. We will learn from Teacher Genius in the future. I hope to be able to help you one day. When Genius heard the 100 Questions beasts addressing it as teacher, it quickly replied, "You just have to learn from me. As long as you learn knowledge from me, Teacher Tsongming will let Lin Yuan bring delicious red braised pork for you every day. Teacher Genius will also concoct spirit fluids to allow all of you to quickly evolve." Lin Yuan had already discussed with Genius about nurturing these 100 Questions beasts. He would first upgrade the 100 Questions beasts to Bronze X/Legend before asking Genius to continuously upgrade the 100 Questions beasts grades. Finally, they would be upgraded to Diamond X/Legend. These 100 Questions beasts would be able to comprehend willpower runes from heaven and earth freely. During the process of enhancing these 100 Questions beasts, Lin Yuan wanted to see the spiritual energy upgrade potential of the 100 Questions beast. He wanted to see if these 100 Questions beasts could be like Genius and use their spiritual energy to perform the work of a creation master. With that thought, Lin Yuan immediately took action. Lin Yuan picked a 100 Questions beast that was entirely orange in color and prepared to enhance this fat orange first. Genius was already preparing to concoct the spirit fluid from bronze to diamond for the fat orange. Lin Yuan circulated his spiritual power and injected it into the fat orange's body to be nourished by the spiritual power. This normal eye/normal fat orange's body immediately emitted a faint luster after its genetic model had been upgraded. Fat orange's quality and rank continued to increase. After reaching the bronze rank, Lin Yuan chose an exclusive skill called Mental Strengthening for this fat orange. Strong Spirit was an exclusive skill that allowed Fatty Orange to sacrifice his vitality when his mental strength was insufficient. It was a method to use vitality to replenish its spiritual energy. If the fat orange could use its spiritual energy to concoct spirit fluids in the future, then this exclusive skill would be very useful. After enhancing the fat orange to bronze eye/normal, Lin Yuan realized that its spiritual energy was dozens of times stronger than before. This discovery immediately made Lin Yuan reveal a delighted expression. From this, it could be seen that the 100 Questions beast, a species that had always been limited by the concentration of spirit energy and had never been able to become a spiritual creature, had a great talent in the spiritual level. Then he settled down and continued to help Fat Orange improve its quality. If he wanted to enhance a Bronze/Legend Fae in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, he would only need over 2 hours. It was no longer a difficult task. After the Fat Orange reached Legend, Lin Yuan found that it suddenly sank in his hand. If Genius's body kept shrinking during the evolution process, in that case, this Fat Orange would grow horizontally without changing its length, becoming heavier and heavier. It really lived up to the famous saying among ordinary people, "The big orange is the heaviest." As long as a white question beast like the orange cat was chosen to be raised, it would not be a problem. These orange cat 100 Questions beasts would eventually become as fat as a ball. Lin Yuan quickly placed the heavy fatty orange on the ground. Fat Orange looked at Lin Yuan with tears in his eyes and felt that this human was simply too good. Fat Orange wanted to take a few steps forward and rub his cheek against Lin Yuan's finger to express intimacy. Fatty Orange's buttocks sank to the ground. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan could not help but hold his forehead. It seemed that this Fat Orange was too fat to walk. Genius walked to Fatty Orange's side and used its mental power to materialize 2 palms. He raised the bottle to Fatty Jew. "Drink this bottle of green liquid first, then drink this bottle of purple liquid. Then you'll be able to upgrade to Platinum level 10. I need 3 hours to concoct the spirit liquid to upgrade it to Diamond grade. I'll give it to you later." Upon hearing that, Fatty Orange raised his little paw with great effort. He wanted to take the spiritual liquid that Genius's spiritual power materialized palm had passed to him. Seeing how Fatty Orange was struggling, Genius placed the spiritual fluid by Fatty Orange's mouth. Fatty Orange could gulp it down in one gulp. After Fatty Orange drank the spiritual fluid, Genius used its skill-interconnected tail to transmit knowledge to Fatty Orange based on his mental strength. When Fatty Orange advanced to Platinum X/Legend, his body remained the same size and his weight didn't change either. However, the color of Fatty Orange's fur had become even more vibrant. It looked like the sunset glow that reflected the last trace of sunlight in the sky. After Fatty Orange advanced to Platinum X/Legend, Lin Yuan suddenly felt an invisible hand on his hand. It was gently holding his hand as though it was expressing something. Lin Yuan lowered his head and saw that it was an orange palm that was materialized with spiritual energy. Lin Yuan immediately looked at Fatty Orange with pleasant surprise and wanted to shout in his heart. His guess back then had actually come true. Based on the strength of this materialized palm, Lin Yuan could feel that the Platinum X/Legend Fatty Orange's spiritual energy was even stronger than the Silver Eye/Fantasy Eye Genius. It also meant that after Genius imparted knowledge to Fatty Orange's creation master ability would likely surpass Genius after a short period of practice. It could be said that Fatty Orange was now a capable general in Lin Yuan's 100 Questions Beast Creation Master Legion. Lin Yuan was previously afraid that Genius would have a hard time concocting the spiritual fluid for these 100 Questions Beasts. With the help of Genius's eldest disciple Fatty Orange, it would soon be able to nurture the third 100 Questions Beast. This way, the 100 Questions Beast Creation Master Legion's numbers would constantly increase. It would also be easier to cultivate other 100 Questions Beasts. Looking at the 100 Questions Beasts in front of him, Lin Yuan felt that these 100 Questions Beasts with Creation Master abilities were already on the same level as the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Don't tell anyone. Because of this attempt, Lin Yuan had imperceptibly changed the structure of the Creation Master occupation. Just as Lin Yuan's thoughts were churning and he was extremely excited, his phone rang. He picked it up and realized that it was Long Tao who had called him. Lin Yuan picked up the phone and heard Long Tao ask in a very certain tone. "Yuan, you and Black are the same person, right?" A few nights ago, Long Tao found Wuxia and tried to calm the storm. As a result, Wuxia sent a message saying that Black and Lin Yuan were having dinner at the same table. Long Tao was stunned when he saw Wuxia's message. When he thought of the familiarity that Lin Yuan and Black gave him, Long Tao felt that he had fallen into a misconception. Thus, after thinking about it, Long Tao decided to ask if Lin Yuan and Black were the same person before getting down to business. The third one. End of chapter. Chapter 1006. When Lin Yuan heard Long Tao calling him to ask such a question, he couldn't help but raise his brows and ask subconsciously, "Why would Brother Long ask that?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Long Tao suddenly realized that he had misspoken. He knew that Lin Yuan had been accepted as a disciple by the Moon Empress in the Radiant Moon Palace. The identity of the Moon Empress disciple represented infinite honor, but if Lin Yuan used the identity of the Moon Empress disciple to go out, it would indeed be somewhat inconvenient. Thus, for convenience's sake, he was likely to go out with another identity. His question was a little abrupt. If Lin Yuan was Black, then his question was tantamount to probing Lin Yuan's secret. If Lin Yuan was not Black, many of the younger generation of veteran factions and top factions would have been unhappy with Black's fans on Star Web a few days ago. Lin Yuan had also received a lot of counterattacks from Hate's fans. Now that he mentioned Black in front of Lin Yuan, it was very likely that he would draw Black's hatred. Long Tao was just about to change the topic when he heard Lin Yuan's words. "Brother Dragon is right, I am Black. I've been using Black's identity to meet Brother Dragon, but I've never revealed my identity. I hope Brother Dragon won't be offended." When Long Tao, who was on the other end of the line, heard Lin Yuan's words, his usually stern face immediately revealed a smile. Lin Yuan's words gave Long Tao the answer in his heart. It made Long Tao realize why Black looked so familiar when he looked at him. Lin Yuan and Black were the same person. At the same time, Long Tao was also very happy that Lin Yuan did not hide it from him. This meant that Lin Yuan did not treat himself as an outsider. Long Tao said as he remembered the business of his call this time. Lin Yuan, you should know about the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift mentioned at the Nyx Assembly, right? The Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift connects to the Abyss world and has massive resources. Furthermore, the Radiance Federation's resources in the main world are already fixed. In the future, the major forces will definitely focus on developing the Abyssal world. Many forces have decided to build a base camp in the Abyss world. I wonder if you have any plans to develop the Abyss world. Upon hearing Long Tao's words, Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Speaking of the Abyss world, Lin Yuan naturally wanted to develop it. After all, the Abyss world was also a dimensional world like the Swamp world. Through Morbius' exclusive skill Klein Hub, he had already opened up the Swamp world. To Lin Yuan, the Swamp world was a state with 1,000 things waiting to be done. He still did not have enough manpower to develop the Swamp world. Therefore, he really did not have the energy and manpower to develop the Abyss after developing the Swamp world. Moreover, after the underground space was built, he still had to embark on a journey to the Divine Wood Federation. Since Long Tao asked, Lin Yuan answered truthfully. Brother Dragon, the Abyss world is indeed very attractive to me, but I really don't have the manpower to develop the Abyss world. As he spoke, Lin Yuan's tone could not help but be tainted with a hint of regret. When Long Tao heard Lin Yuan's words, his face immediately revealed a hint of joy. According to Lin Yuan's words, Long Tao knew that Lin Yuan wanted to open up the Abyss world. However, because he did not have enough manpower, Lin Yuan had given up on developing the Abyss world. Long Tao hurriedly expressed his thoughts. Li Xian and I have an idea. We'll leave our families and form a force in our own names to explore resources in the Abyss. It's just that after Li Xian and I left the clan, the resources we have are limited. At most, we can guarantee that we have enough manpower. I don't have any good ideas for other aspects of supplies and creation master resources for now. Therefore, I wanted to ask you if you're interested in forming a faction together to develop and expand in the Abyss world. Upon hearing Long Tao's words, Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and pondered carefully. It seemed that he could indeed explore and develop the Abyss world by cooperating with Long Tao and Li Xian according to Long Tao's ideas. Long Tao and Li Xian would organize the manpower and invest the supplies and creation master resources himself. By relying on the Spirit Lock spatial zone and his own ability, he was no longer the same as before in terms of creating resources. Therefore, Lin Yuan was very confident that he could pour in supplies and creation master resources for Long Tao and Li Xian. Lin Yuan suddenly thought of an idea. Brother Dragon, your idea is good, but the three of us forming a faction to explore and develop the Abyss world is still a little small. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Long Tao was stunned. Long Tao didn't quite understand what Lin Yuan meant by small skirmishes. This was still small. Just the force formed by him and Li Xian, two core disciples of top forces, was already much stronger than those veteran forces. If Lin Yuan, His Holiness disciple, joined them, even some top factions would not be able to compare to their newly established faction. Just as Long Tao was feeling puzzled, Lin Yuan said, since Brother Long wants to explore the Abyss world through cooperation, why don't we call Gao Feng, Sun Ningxiang and the young palace master of Yiyang Palace? I'll ask Zhong Zhe and Gulang later. If it's possible, we might as well establish a force to explore the Abyss. When Long Tao heard Lin Yuan's words, he was shocked and opened his mouth wide. He didn't know what to say. It had already been 2 days since he and Li Xian had this idea. After hesitating for 2 days, Long Tao wondered if he should ask Lin Yuan. Long Tao and Lin Yuan had already become good friends and had worked together before. However, Long Tao was still afraid that his actions would offend Lin Yuan when they were establishing a faction together. It made Lin Yuan think that he wanted to use Lin Yuan's influence and identity to develop his faction. In the end, not only did Lin Yuan not think that way, but he also helped him spread his stall even bigger. What kind of people did Lin Yuan bring in? The top faction, Du Immortal Garden, was indeed a little weak, but it was still a top faction. Sun Ningxiang's identity was different from his. He was just the young family master of Coiling Dragon Valley. Sun Ningxiang was in charge of the entire Du Immortal Garden. Pulling Sun Ningxiang over was equivalent to pulling over a top faction. The remaining few were all His Holiness disciples. His Holiness Gao Feng Chanming's disciple. Lu Jie Chief Guard Ye's disciple. Chef Supreme Master Zhong Zhe's disciple. Gulang Zhujun's disciple. If such a lineup was put together to establish a faction, Long Tao didn't dare to imagine how much influence this faction would have. According to Lin Yuan's proposal, he would also become a part of this faction. Long Tao, who had always been good at yin and yang qi and had a sharp tongue, began to stutter. Is this idea feasible? Chapter 1007. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied straightforwardly. Anyway, the few of us have already added the chat software on our phones during the Nix assembly. Why don't I create a small group with the chat software on my phone? We can discuss it directly in the group. Long Tao originally thought that Lin Yuan was just having an idea and had mentioned it. He didn't expect Lin Yuan to have such strong motivation. He actually decided to do it immediately. Long Tao said excitedly. Alright, let's talk about it in the group chat later. After hanging up, he called Wuxia. During this period, Wuxia had been running to the land of spirit suppression and using the insect queen to control the insect-type tumor Fei to increase the sacred source lifeform's star rank. Wuxia was currently in the land of soul suppression. Since this matter involved Wuxia, he intended to ask for his opinion in advance and send a message to him. The phone rang a few times, but Wuxia did not answer. Just as Lin Yuan was about to hang up, he heard a cold female voice coming from the other end of the line. Little Yuan, Wuxia is using the insect queen to control an insect species carcinoma Fei called the hibernating dung beetle. The hibernating dung beetle's combat awareness is relatively strong. The insect queen will need at least 2 more hours to completely subdue the hibernating dung beetle. If there's anything you need to solve, you can tell me directly. Or you can wait for the insect queen to finish controlling the heart-stinging dung beetle, and I'll help you pass on a message. Upon hearing the voice on the other end of the phone, Lin Yuan did not react for a moment. However, he immediately knew that the person talking to him was the chief guard of the spirit guards, Night Leaning Moon. Lin Yuan said hurriedly. Greetings, Chief Guard Yi. I don't have anything urgent on my side. I just plan to establish a force with a few friends to jointly develop and explore the Abyss world. I wanted to ask Brother Lu for his opinion. Night Leaning Moon was a little surprised by Lin Yuan's words. Night Leaning Moon remembered that Wuxia was Lin Yuan's retainer knight, so Lin Yuan could help Wuxia decide such things. There was no need to ask for Wuxia's opinion. When Night Leaning Moon first accepted Wuxia as her disciple, she didn't think much of it. However, after serving as Wuxia's master for more than 2 months, Night Leaning Moon's relationship with Wuxia had deepened. Night Leaning Moon was really afraid that Wuxia would be wronged. But now, with Lin Yuan's call, Night Leaning Moon's worries completely disappeared. The fact that Lin Yuan would take the initiative to ask for Wuxia's opinion on such a matter showed his respect for Wuxia. This showed that Lin Yuan did not regard Wuxia as a retainer knight at all but a true partner. Night Leaning Moon thought about how her silly disciple would always place his hand on the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest on his chest. If Night Leaning Moon didn't know that Wuxia was touching her faith, she would have thought that her disciple was a narcissistic man with his hands on his chest. In short, Night Leaning Moon felt that it was impossible for her disciple to refuse Lin Yuan's proposal. Night Leaning Moon was now constantly using resources to help Wuxia improve his strength. She wanted him to become one of the 5 Radiance Envoys in 3 years. In order to become a Radiance Envoy, apart from strength, influence was also very important. Therefore, Night Leaning Moon hoped from the bottom of her heart that Wuxia could join this faction that was jointly built by many friends. Little Yuan, you don't have to call me Chief Guard Yi in the future. My name is Night Leaning Moon, just call me Aunt Yi. I'll ask Wuxia to call you back when he wakes up. Lin Yuan called out to Auntie Yu and hung up the phone. He only knew that the spirit guard's chief guard's surname was Yi, but he didn't expect her name to be Night Leaning Moon. Wasn't Leaning Moon the same as the Leaning Moon Mountain where his master, the Moon Empress, lived? Lin Yuan felt that the 2 words, Leaning Moon, were full of meaning. While Wuxia was busy using the insect queen to control the hibernating dung beetle, Lin Yuan decided to take Wuxia's place for the discussion. Even if Wuxia joined the discussion, he would not be the one to provide manpower. He would be the one to provide resources. Wuxia was a member of Sky City and also Lin Yuan's retainer knight. Ultimately, Lin Yuan had to provide Wuxia's share of resources. Lin Yuan took the cell phone and opened the chat software. He found Gao Feng, Zhongzhe, Gulang, Sun Ningxiang, Zhongzhe, Li Xian and created a group and added the 6 of them. After pulling everyone in, Lin Yuan sent a message. Lin Yuan, Long Tao and Li Xian have an idea that I think is good. If everyone has time, why don't we discuss it together? At all members. After Lin Yuan sent the message, Long Tao and Li Xian quickly replied. Long Tao, that's right. This Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift can connect to the Abyss World. Is everyone interested in developing the Abyss World together? Li Xian, who was on the other end of the phone, wanted to type, but before his hand could press the send button, a video chat popped up in the group. Li Xian quickly deleted his long message and clicked into the video chat. Lin Yuan raised his brows when he saw the video chat window on his cell phone. The person who initiated the video chat was actually the cursed Xianxia. After entering the chat, Lin Yuan realized that everyone, including Sun Ningxiang, had entered the group chat. Lin Yuan's cell phone screen turned into 9 squares, and 8 of the squares had a shaking head. Among them, Gao Feng had already fallen asleep. At this moment, Gao Feng was rubbing his sleepy eyes with a head full of a hogue. Lin Yuan was the first to speak. The Yeyang Palace's young palatial lord is busy, so I will take over the discussion. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Long Tao, Li Xian and Sun Ningxiang were stunned. Even Gao Feng, Gu Lang and Xianxia were stunned. After becoming His Holiness Cicada Cry's disciple, Gao Feng had been pulled by His Holiness Cicada Cry for some in-depth guidance. After some guidance, Gao Feng understood the power and responsibility of being His Holiness Cicada Cry's disciple. He did not expect Lu Jie to allow Lin Yuan to make the decision on his behalf. From this, it could be seen how good Lin Yuan and Lu Jie's relationship was. Lin Yuan first let Long Tao and Li Xian talk about the idea. After Long Tao and Li Xian finished talking about the idea of developing the Abyss World, Xianxia, who had been silent, spoke. This idea is good, but I can't produce ordinary people who can mine the Abyss World's resources, and I don't have such people around me. However, if we establish a faction, I can produce 5 Emperor-class experts and 1 Emperor-class expert. I don't know if my investment can account for 15% of the faction's shares. Xianxia's words immediately made Long Tao, Li Xian and Sun Ningxiang overjoyed. Chapter 1008. It was an irresistible temptation for Long Tao, Li Xian, and Sun Ningxiang to establish a faction with His Majesty's disciple. Now that Lin Yuan had created an opportunity, Long Tao, Li Xian and Sun Ningxiang naturally had to do their best to grasp the opportunity. Xianxia's words had already indicated that he agreed to establish a faction with them. However, Xianxia had taken out 5 Emperor-class experts and 1 the Arch-expert and actually wanted to occupy 15% of the shares. Xianxia definitely wouldn't say 15% of the shares casually. This was likely Xianxia's condition and test. Xianxia already had expectations for the stall. If they couldn't meet Xianxia's expectations, Xianxia would likely lose interest. However, it was truly difficult for Long Tao, Li Xian and Sun Ningxiang to take out manpower and resources equivalent to the value of 5 Emperor-class experts and 1 the Arch-expert to develop the Abyss World. Gritting their teeth, Long Tao, Li Xian and Sun Ningxiang respectively stated the chips they could invest and the shares they wanted. Sun Ningxiang said, "The Abyss World can't produce the daily necessities. I can be fully responsible for providing the entire faction's consumption in the Abyss World. It's just that I really can't take out the high-end combat power on hand. My Do Medical has been closed for the past few years, and more than half of the Do Medical's manpower is still in the Sun family. Close to 100,000 people generally have phase at gold and above. I can put all of these people into the exploration of the swamp world. I choose 10% of the shares." Long Tao said, "I can send internal affairs personnel to take on all aspects of the Abyss World's management responsibilities. At the same time, I will take out 3 Emperor-class experts and invest 200 Creation Masters below Class 3 to take on the responsibility of healing phase with damaged roots. I choose 10% of the shares." Li Xian said, "I can take out 2 Emperor-class experts, 50,000 people and 200 Class 2 to Class 3 spirit craftsmen. I choose 10% of the shares." Sun Ningxiang, Li Xian and Long Tao's statements had basically completed the replenishment of manpower for the Abyss World's development. The 3 of them had gathered 150,000 people, 200 Creation Masters below Class 3, 200 Class 2 to Class 3 spirit craftsmen, and daily expenses and management work. They only occupied 35% of the shares. Adding up all these complicated things, the three of them taking 35% of the shares was slightly higher than the 15% that Zhongzhe had sent out for 5 Emperor Stage powerhouses and 1 Great Emperor Stage powerhouse. This also showed the sincerity of Sun Ningxiang Long Tao and Li Xian in establishing a force together. Although the resources that Sun Ningxiang Long Tao and Li Xian took out were higher than Zhongzhe's, the resources that Sun Ningxiang Long Tao and Li Xian offered were higher than Zhongzhe's. However, he who had explored the swamp world knew how dangerous the dimensional worlds were. The abyss world was the same as the swamp world, it had apostles. Therefore, if they wanted to continue exploring the abyss world, they needed an emperor-level powerhouse to oversee it. Otherwise, if an apostle or a level 11 dimensional creature appeared, it was very likely that the entire faction would be uprooted by the abyssal demons in the abyss. Seeing that 4 people had already expressed their opinions, Gao Feng said excitedly, "The 4 of you have taken up 45% of the resources, so let the 4 of us split the other 55%. For the past few days, Gao Feng felt like he was in a dream. He had become Cicada Cry's disciple by chance because of Wuxia. His father's attitude toward him had also undergone an earth-shattering change. In the past, Gao Feng did not dare to imagine that he would one day be able to eat his father's food. After becoming Cicada Cry's disciple and receiving his teachings, Gao Feng knew that he was destined to have no fate with the Radiance Envoy with his ability. Gao Feng had never thought about the position of the Radiance Envoy. However, Cicada Cry had set a goal for Gao Feng to become one of the 10 members of the Radiant Light Knights. This added a lot of pressure to Gao Feng. At the same time, Gao Feng also understood the importance of a faction's development for an expert. Gao Feng originally wanted to put his energy on the emerging faction established with Lin Yuan, but it now seemed that the opportunity in front of him was more beneficial to him. It was just that Gao Feng was one echelon lower than Long Tao and Sun Ningxiang among the top factions. Therefore, Gao Feng did not have many resources. Gao Feng decided to have a good talk with his father when he returned home to see if he could get some resources and manpower to invest in the exploration of the abyss world. Gao Feng felt that his father, Gao Pei, would not refuse such an opportunity. Gao Feng said, "I will provide 3 Emperor-class experts and 50,000 men. As for spirit craftsmen and creation masters, I really can't provide them. 3 Emperor Realm experts, 50,000 people and 10% of the shares should be enough, right?" Lin Yuan replied, "Of course." After Gao Feng expressed his stance, Gu Lang looked at Zhongzhe curiously in the video window. Strange, with Zhongzhe's temper, why would he participate in something like establishing a faction? Wasn't Zhongzhe, this battle maniac, never interested in the development of his forces? Although it was strange, Gu Lang did not stop talking. "I will do the same as Zhongzhe. 5 Emperor-class experts and 1 Emperor-class expert will take 15% of the shares." After that, Gu Lang continued after a moment of silence. "Our basic manpower and powerhouses are in place. It's not a problem for 200 2-star to 3-star spirit craftsmen to build simple infrastructure in the abyss. But we only have 200 creation masters that are below class 3. We don't have any high-class creation masters. It won't be easy to explore the abyss without high-class creation master resources." Gu Lang did not say how difficult it was. However, Gu Lang knew that everyone present understood it very well. Without high-class creation masters, king-class, emperor-class and emperor-class experts, no one could heal the phase roots. Moreover, it was impossible to guarantee that the various rare fire element spiritual ingredients produced in the abyss would be ripe when found. Therefore, pure fire element energy was needed as a supplement. Some rare spiritual ingredients even required heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. For the Abyss World's developers, if they comprehended willpower runes or their main phase died in battle, they would also need high-quality bronze phase for support and compensation. Gu Lang felt that excluding those precious resources, he would need at least 40 to 50 Class 3 creation masters to barely be able to bear these requirements. Just as everyone fell into silence, Lin Yuan said, "High-class creation master resources aren't a problem. High-class creation master resources aren't a problem. I can resolve it. Since there are only 30% of the shares left, then I and the Young Palace Master of Yiyang Palace will take all of them. The Young Palace Lord and I will use high-class creation master resources to increase the 30% of the shares." Chapter 1009. Gulang's words caused Zhongzhe, Long Tao, Sun Ningxiang, Gao Feng and Li Xian to ponder. At first it was just Long Tao and Li Xian's idea. Long Tao and Li Xian didn't expect their business to be so big at first. Originally, Long Tao and Li Xian wanted to rope Lin Yuan in because they didn't have enough creation master resources. Long Tao and Li Xian wanted to establish their own forces instead of relying on their own family's forces. Therefore, Long Tao and Li Xian could only occasionally borrow the resources of their own forces. If they were to use a large number of their faction's creation master's resources, it wouldn't make sense. As Class 5 creation master disciples, Gulang and Zhongzhe were able to provide high-ranked creation master resources. However, it was far from enough to support a force with 2 emperor-level powerhouses and more than 10 emperor-level powerhouses. After all, Gulang and Zhongzhe didn't have a large number of Class 3 or 4 creation masters that they could deploy. Even if there was, it would belong to Supreme Chef and Bamboo Monarch. Zhongzhe and Gulang wanted to establish a force with their own identities. It was also impossible for him to directly use the creation master resources that his master possessed. Not to mention Sun Ningxiang. After Sun Ningxiang's grandmother killed the 3 pinnacle Class 4 creation masters, the Du Immortal Garden's creation master resources were immediately depleted. Right now there were only a few Class 3 creation masters. The high-class creation masters relied on their cooperation with Lin Yuan to barely maintain the operation of the Du Immortal Garden. Although Gao Feng had become the disciple of His Highness Cicada Cry, the Gao family was still at the bottom of the top forces. The Gao family had been developing the deep-sea resources, causing the Gao family's creation master resources to be in short supply. Gao Feng felt that after becoming the disciple of Her Holiness, if he wanted to discuss this with his father, Gao Pei, it would be impossible. It was very likely that Gao Pei would transfer a large number of creation master resources from the clan for his use. However, this would definitely worsen the Gao family's creation master's shortage of resources. Gao Feng wanted to build a force with his brothers, but he didn't want to ruin his own family. Therefore, the problem that Gulang mentioned just now could be said to be a difficult problem that everyone needed to face together. While everyone was racking their brains, Lin Yuan, who had yet to state his conditions, solved everyone's problem. He would use 30% of the shares to fill in the high-class creation master resources that the entire faction required. Before the others could say anything, Zhongzhe had already taken the initiative to speak. Lin Yuan, isn't it a little too much for you to take out so many high-class creation master resources alone? If you are reluctant, I can take out 30 Class 3 creation masters to help you fill the gap of high-class creation masters. Gulang had originally been surprised by Zhongzhe's abnormal passion for building his faction and initiating a group video chat. When Zhongzhe said this, Gulang's emotions were no longer as simple as surprise. Gulang only felt that the Zhongzhe who was speaking now was either fake or he was being controlled. Zhongzhe might not be keen on building a faction for the past few years, but he had also organized a creation master society. Zhongzhe had probably taken out more than half of the creation master resources from the Creation Master Association. Wasn't this investment a little too big? Upon hearing Zhongzhe's words, Lin Yuan hurriedly replied. Zhongzhe, I don't need your help. I'm not forcing you. When the faction is officially established and the abyss is explored, all the high-class creation master resources will be in place. However, the creation masters in my hands cannot enter the abyss, but I will order people to deliver a batch of elixirs that are concocted by the creation masters every day. As for resources like the fire attribute heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls and bronze/epic phase, I will also send people to deliver them according to the faction's development needs. While speaking, Lin Yuan started to calculate in his mind. He now had a total of 50 questions beasts in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, and they were all taught by Genius. If Genius wanted to train all 50 questions beasts, it would take at least half a month. During the concoction process, the 100 questions beasts could only use their spiritual energy and not soul power. As a result, the 100 questions beasts were currently stuck at the pinnacle of Class 3 creation masters. Only when the 100 questions beasts grasped the usage of soul power would they be able to reach the standard of a Class 4 creation master. Even Genius couldn't grasp the trick to using soul power. It could be said that the usage of soul power was something that Genius and Lin Yuan had to research together in the future. However, the spirit fluid concocted by a Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Master was enough to evolve a normal Fae to the Pinnacle of Diamond. It would also help Gold and above Faes to evolve to Legend. With these 100 questions beasts, which were equivalent to Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Masters, complementing Lin Yuan, it was the same as saying that Lin Yuan no longer had any shortcomings as a Creation Master. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zhou did not insist on adding another 30 Class 3 Creation Masters. He just stared at Lin Yuan in the video for a long time and said, "If a high-class Creation Master encounters a problem with the resources, you can tell me directly." Lin Yuan smiled and shook his head. After guiding the first batch of 100 questions beasts, Genius could totally focus on guiding the second batch of 100 questions beasts. With the first batch of 100 questions beasts that obtained Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Master abilities, it would be much easier for Genius to nurture the second batch of 100 questions beasts. Therefore, it was not possible for him to lack high-class Creation Master resources. After a short discussion, the matter was settled. After settling down, Zhou spoke again. Lin Yuan is providing all the high-class Creation Master resources, but he only holds 30% of the shares. Speaking of which, he is contributing more than each of us. I suggest that Lin Yuan obtain the priority to choose the resources produced in the abyss. Lin Yuan will get to choose 30% of the resources produced each time. We will distribute the remaining 70% equally according to the shares. Naturally, no one would object to Zhou words. Long Tao, Li Xian, Sun Ningxiang and Gao Feng were already extremely grateful to Lin Yuan. Without Lin Yuan, it would have been impossible to facilitate such a cooperation opportunity. Gu Lang was currently sizing up Lin Yuan and Zhou with suspicion. Gu Lang had known Zhou for more than a decade, but he had never seen Zhou speak so much for someone else's benefit. Since the people in the group chat had formed a force together, the relationship between them had changed from friends to partners. Gu Lang didn't care too much when he spoke. "Zhou, when will you return to the kitchen incense palace?" Zhou said. "In 2 days, Master and I will leave the purple bamboo forest. After leaving the purple bamboo garden, Master will bring me to a Class 5 Abyss Dimensional Rift to collect a newly discovered Class 5 Heavenly Flame. It will be 10 days before we return to the kitchen fragrance palace." Hearing Zhou's words, Gu Lang laughed. The first one was even worse. End of chapter. Chapter 10:10. Previously, you still owe me 300 plates. Although the Night End Palace's young palace lord isn't here today, I'm fully in charge. But in the end, the 8 of us have formed a faction together. Why don't you set up 300 plates after you come back? The 7 of us won't go to Kitchen Fragrance Palace but find a place outside to have a good gathering. When Zhou heard Gu Lang's words, he frowned slightly and subconsciously wanted to refuse. However, when Zhou saw Lin Yuan's tempted gaze, he swallowed the words of rejection that were at the tip of his tongue. "All right, then come to my courtyard house in the royal capital's West Park." Seeing that Zhou agreed readily, Gu Lang laughed heartily and said, "Then you set up 300 plates. Then you set up 300 plates and I'll bring a few jars of purple bamboo wine. We'll have a good meal with good wine and dishes." Through Lin Yuan's discussion group, everyone quickly became familiar with each other. As a result, they chatted for more than half an hour. When they were almost done, Lin Yuan ended the video call. It could be said that one of Lin Yuan's concerns had finally disappeared. Now Lin Yuan could develop the Swamp World's resources and obtain the Abyss World's resources without any trouble. Lin Yuan looked at the time and realized that there was still a while before the appointed time with Listen and Hu Quan. Lin Yuan picked a snake fae that was the most sensitive to spirit chi from the various snake faes he had purchased. It was called the Lazarite snake. Lin Yuan used his palm to inject rich and pure spirit chi into the Lazarite snake's body. As expected, under the effect of the spirit chi, the Lazarite snake's body underwent a drastic change. The Lazarite snake's normal-sized scales kept becoming finer and finer under the wash of spirit chi. It was so fine that Lin Yuan could no longer see the snake scales on the Lazarite snake's body with the naked eye. The finer scales were undoubtedly much stronger than the larger scales, allowing the Lazarite snake to become more agile. This was because these snake faes were nurtured for Wendy. Therefore, Lin Yuan had always insisted on picking exclusive skills that could increase the toxicity of these snake faes. Some of the other exclusive skills were indeed very strong, but they did not have any bonus to Wendy. When Lin Yuan upgraded this lazurite snake to bronze grade, the original mix of green and gold on the snake's body suddenly separated. The scales turned into a fine gold color, and all the green on the snake's body gathered in the snake's pupils. It made the entire snake's appearance look even more magnificent and noble. With true data, Lin Yuan realized that the bronze green-gold snake had changed its name to the green-eyed golden-scaled snake. After enhancing the green-eyed golden-scaled snake, Lin Yuan tried to sense its venom. He discovered that the green-eyed golden-scaled snake's venom had changed from the original neurotoxin to a cursed poison that could affect the mind and soul at the same time. The cursed nature of this poison could make solid calcified materials lose their activity and become dry and cracked. He felt that the curse effect of turning the calcified material dry and cracked could be seen as an armor-piercing ability. In other words, the body that was infected by the green-eyed golden-scaled snake's venom would have calcified armor, and even its bones would become loose and cracked. This toxicity was extremely effective against the dimensional creatures in the swamp world who used their bodies as combat weapons. If Wendy turned the green-eyed golden-scaled snake into her own hair, she would be able to master this poison. The poison with the curse effect combined with Wendy's petrifying gaze could petrify the calcified material on the target's body. It had the effect of dealing double damage. This ability could also better assist Lizard Ting in fighting other dimensional creatures. Lin Yuan stored the green-eyed golden-scaled snake with satisfaction and left the spirit lock spatial zone. At that moment, 35 spirit craftsmen were standing outside the manor and looking at Hu Quan with excitement. Hu Quan looked at the 35 spirit craftsmen in front of him and said solemnly, "You 35 brats are quite lucky to be chosen by the city lord. I will also focus on teaching the 35 of you in the future. After you follow the city lord into seclusion, you must put in all your effort. If you dare to slack off, this old man and the city lord will not let you off lightly." While Hu Quan was speaking, Lin Yuan had already walked out of the mansion. When Hu Quan saw Lin Yuan, he hurriedly said, "That's right. Young master, although there are no class 4 spirit craftsmen among these 35 brats, 5 of them have reached the standard of a class 3 spirit craftsman. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to break through in a week or 2. If I'm unlucky, I'll become a class 4 spirit craftsman by the end of this year. Young master, do you want to choose a manager among these 5 pinnacle class 3 spirit craftsmen? At that time, I'll let this manager unify the entire spirit craftsman group and make it easier to assign tasks." When Lin Yuan heard Hu Quan's words, he looked at the 5 pinnacle class 3 spirit craftsmen standing in the front row. Everyone had their own specialization, and Lin Yuan did not have much research on spirit craftsmen. Therefore, Lin Yuan could not tell who was better among the 5 pinnacle class 3 spirit craftsmen. Lin Yuan asked the 5 pinnacle class 3 spirit craftsmen, "Are there any of you 5 who would like to recommend yourself? Those who feel that they can lead this team of 35 spirit craftsmen will take a step forward. Do you think that you can lead this team of 35 spirit craftsmen to take a step forward?" One of the spirit craftsmen hurriedly took a step forward and said, "City Lord, I would like to recommend myself. City Lord, I would like to recommend myself. I am confident that I can lead this spirit craftsman team well." Lin Yuan looked at the spirit craftsman who had taken a step forward and suddenly felt that the person in front of him was somewhat familiar. Then Lin Yuan recalled that when he had ridden black to check the underground space's construction, it was this spirit craftsman who had received him. When the other spirit craftsmen saw him, they had turned their heads woodenly and only worked quietly. From this, it could be seen that this spirit craftsman who had recommended himself was better at communicating than the other spirit craftsmen. Lin Yuan remembered that this spirit craftsman had mentioned his name when he had bid farewell to him before he had left. From this, Lin Yuan could see this spirit craftsman's ambition. Lin Yuan was not afraid of his subordinate's ambition, as only ambitious people would work harder. Lin Yuan had always been willing to give people who wanted to take the initiative to change their fate. "I remember you. You're Lu Tong. Since you're so confident, then you'll lead this team of 35 spirit craftsmen from now on." Upon seeing that Lin Yuan had chosen Lu Tong, Hu Quan nodded in satisfaction and did not object. Lu Tong's diligence had left a good impression on Hu Quan. In addition, Lu Tong would often look for opportunities to chat with Hu Quan. This made Lu Tong one of the few spirit craftsmen in the heavenly craft pavilion that Hu Quan could name. Now that Hu Quan saw that Lin Yuan valued Lu Tong so much, he said, "Little brat, you have to grasp the opportunity. Little brat, you must grasp this opportunity to gain the city lord's appreciation. Do well. If you do well, I'll consider taking you in as a personal disciple." The second was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 10-12. When the young girl saw the old man kneeling on one knee, she hurriedly placed the azure-clouded leopard Lon Li, who was in his mimicry state, on the ground. Then he quickly ran toward the old man. The young girl's skirt brushed against the blue wind chimes, sending blue petals flying. Just when the girl was about to help the old man up, the old man who was kneeling on one knee hurriedly lowered his head and said, "Azure Envoy, you mustn't. Sir, you have a noble status. How can you bend down to help this old servant up so easily?" When the girl heard this, a trace of helplessness flashed in her clear eyes. "Grandpa Butler, in the past you and I didn't kneel on one knee like this. Even if I become an Azure Envoy, you're still my Grandpa Butler." When the old man heard the girl's words, he lowered his body even more. At the same time, he felt that this girl whom he had watched grow up was indescribably unfamiliar. Not long ago, after the girl had recovered her eyes, she had simultaneously awakened the beast marks of the azure-clouded leopard and the spirit speech white lion. He became a dual beast pattern spirit chi professional that had never appeared in the Azure Federation in the past 100 years. Actually, it wasn't like the Azure Federation didn't have any geniuses with dual beast marks. However, none of these double-awakened beast marks had awakened the Azure beast mark that represented the Azure Federation. Thus, she was directly appointed as the fourth Azure Envoy of the new generation by the Azure Court. In the old man's heart, the girl in front of him had always been innocent and lively. Their understanding of the world was muddled, and they should be as pure as a fawn. However, a week ago, for some reason, this young lady had insisted on choosing a small island in the Azure Federation's archipelago to establish her own faction. In the end, 3 3-star clans and 2 4-star clans unknowingly participated in the fight for the island that the young girl had her eyes on. While they were in a deadlock, one of the 4-star clans came up with an idea. He wanted to use his connections to take control of the island in the blue territory before the auction. When the girl found out, she immediately flew into a rage. He used a thunderous method to issue an Azure Imperial Order, dealing with the 4-star clan member who had relied on underhanded means to seize the island. For a time, the great families of the Azure Federation were in an uproar under the command of the 4th Azure Envoy. Even now, not to mention the old man in front of them, even the young girl's parents did not know what the young girl was thinking. The old man recalled that he was here to report Lord Qian Sun's request and continued. "Lord Azure Envoy, Lord Sun suggests that you visit Radiance. This time, Lord Sun will be leading 10 of the new Azure 100 Sequence's younger generation to the Radiance Federation. He wants to arrange a sparring match with the new Radiance 100 Sequence members. And the 3rd Azure Envoy has already decided to move out. The 3rd Azure Envoy will assist Lord Sun in handling various matters. You don't have to worry about it." When the woman heard the old man's words, she fell into deep thought and did not immediately agree. "Grandpa Butler, please inform Teacher Sun. I'll think about it again. I've already bought that island. Help me assign 10 Class 4 Spirit Craftsmen and 50 Class 3 Spirit Craftsmen to the island for construction." As Yin Lin spoke, she gently rubbed her temples with her fingers. During this period of time, Yin Lin was extremely busy. Only now did she have the chance to look up at the distant Virgo Nebula in her garden. Looking at the Virgo Nebula, Yin Lin felt as if he was looking at the person who made him feel very warm. Even though Yin Lin did not know what that person looked like, she only knew that that person was entangled with hundreds and thousands of laws and willpower. However, the person with hundreds and thousands of rules and willpower energy entwined around him was Yin Lin's longing. Even though Yin Lin had lived in the darkness since she was young, she had touched books so many times that her hands were dripping with blood. Her fingers were Yin Lin's eyes, helping her perceive and understand the world. Yin Lin had read at least 30 to 40 biographies of the Azure Federation's great figures. Therefore, Yin Lin clearly understood that authority would give rise to prestige. Since the authority belonged to her, Yin Lin would use it to complete things that were very important to her. For example, back then Yinlin had not hesitated to issue the Azure Imperial Order to get rid of the person in the Class 4 family who broke the rules and take back the island that she had her eyes on. Yinlin wasn't a bad-tempered person. The only reason she was enraged was because that person from the 4-star family had crossed her bottom line. It was the behavior of the person in the Class 4 family that made Yinlin unable to complete the task that the person she longed for had arranged for her. Therefore Yinlin was angry. Upon hearing Yinlin's words, the old man quickly replied, "Lord Radiance Envoy, don't worry. Lord Radiance Envoy, don't worry. I will do it immediately. I just don't know what direction you want to operate your private faction in." Upon hearing the elder's words, Yinlin immediately said her thoughts after careful consideration. The Class 6 dimensional rift that the Azure Federation opened is the Water World Dimensional Rift, which is connected to the Water World. It can produce a large number of water-type spiritual ingredients and heavy water, which can be used as one of the directions for the faction's operations in the future. In addition, I have chosen a territory above a huge coral reef. This coral reef has thousands of coral phase as resources. I plan to protect and nurture these coral resources, using rare corals as a function to open up a business path. Upon hearing Yinlin's words, the elder quickly memorized Yinlin's words and said, "Lord Azure Envoy, don't worry. Don't worry, Azure Envoy. This old servant will do as you say." At this point the elder suddenly asked, "Lord Azure Envoy, don't worry. Lord Azure Envoy, you will soon be able to establish your private force. After the faction is established, do you have any plans to give it a name?" Upon hearing the elder's words, Yinlin looked up at the stars in the sky. She paused for a moment before speaking. "Now is not the time to give it a name. Grandpa Butler, you may leave. I want to quietly watch the stars in the garden." The elder respectfully bowed and turned to leave the garden filled with blue wind chimes. Yinlin gently turned around and picked up the azure-clouded leopard, Lon Li, who she had placed on the ground with some grievances. At the thought of being able to meet the person of her dreams tomorrow, Yinlin revealed a pure smile from the bottom of her heart. Unlike Yinlin, who was leisurely gazing at the starry sky in the blue windchime garden, the heavily injured Bei-Su was leaning against the stone wall. Fresh blood flowed out of Bei-Su's body and had already faintly soaked the ground. Beside Bei-Su was a sharp shadow bat, which was using its ability to summon a large number of bat shadows to gnaw on a similarly heavily injured azure-clouded leopard. The Class 5 burrowing lizard frog was already powerless to stand up. The burrowing lizard frog was considered a rather powerful existence among Class 5 creatures. Its skin was covered with poison glands. Chapter 10:13. The venom glands could secrete highly alkaline mucus. During combat, the cave lizard frog would dip its long tongue in the mucus and use it as a combat weapon. The burrowing lizard frog's hind legs contained a powerful explosive force, and the burrowing lizard frog's body weighed nearly 2 tons. It was a self-aiming charge bomb. When the Class 5 cave lizard frog hit the target, the alkaline mucus secreted by its venom glands would try its best to wrap the target, achieving a double killing effect. Bei-Su was in such a sorry state, with his body deformed and bleeding all over the ground. Bei-Su had encountered a Pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift. This cave lizard frog was originally a Pinnacle Class 4 dimensional life form, but after devouring a few Class 4 earth drilling mantis, it had successfully advanced to Class 5. Bei-Su, who was standing behind the Razor Shadow Bat and controlling the Razor Shadow Bat, was hit by the burrowing lizard frog that had suddenly advanced because he didn't have any foresight or defense beforehand. Fortunately, the Edge Shadow Bat had used its body to block for Bei-Su. Otherwise, Bei-Su would have died from his body shattering when the Class 5 cave-dwelling lizard frog charged at him. Fortunately, Bei-Su had encountered a Pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift and not the Class 5 cave lizard frog alone. When the cave lizard frog hit the Edge Shadow Bat and Bei-Su, the Edge Shadow Bat used bat swarm absorption. The large number of dimensional life forms that gushed out of the Pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift were like Bei-Su's mobile blood bags. With the bat swarm absorption, Bei-Su and the Edge Shadow Bat recovered from their injuries. This was how Bei-Su's life was saved and allowed the Edge Shadow Bat to continue fighting. During the Third Celestial Council meeting, Lin Yuan knew that Bei-Su was like a little fool. Not only did he not know how to use the diamond face storage box, But he also did not use the spirit fluid that genius had concocted for Bei-Su. Instead, he carried the diamond Fei storage box and spirit fluid on his body like a burden that needed to be carefully protected. After learning about this, Lin Yuan was willing to consume the power of the law. He also used the sacred source life form, the Celestial Council's functional astral spirit chair, to pass many books on general knowledge of spirit qi professionals to Bei-Su. This included the use of the diamond Fei storage box and spirit fluid. Under the guidance of the books, Bei-Su brought the diamond Fei storage box. He also fed the spirit fluid to the bronze X/Fantasy Eye Edge Shadow Bat. After a day of absorption and strengthening, the blade Shadow Bat had advanced to Platinum X/Fantasy Eye. The increase in strength of the Shadow Edge Bat also gave Bei-Su the confidence to explore the underground world. The reason why Bei-Su had set his sights on the Pinnacle Class 2-dimensional rift was because of the two source-type items inside. Bei-Su's plan was good, but he had almost failed because of the cave lizard frog. The cave lizard frog is and Cave King Soul, the Platinum X/Fantasy Eye Sharp Shadow Dark Bat and a Diamond X/Legend Ordinary Fey were comparable in strength. Therefore it was not difficult for the Platinum X/Fantasy Eye Blade Shadow Bat to attack the burrowing lizard frog. Soon enough, the Edge Shadow Bat used its Platinum ability, Bat Shadow Killing, to get rid of a large number of underground dimensional creatures. Only then did it stop the advancement of the Pinnacle Class 2-dimensional rift's creature tide. Bat Demon during the Glur and shot Soul Fong Bat to kill, and the Class 5 Cave Lizard. The Bat. It was all for the sake of healing Bei-Su's serious injuries through the Bat Swarm Absorb skill. As the Cave Lizard Frog's vitality energy was extracted, Bei-Su's vitality energy became denser. Bei-Su slowly tried to stand up from the ground, but it affected his damaged and displaced organs. Bei-Su almost lost his breath and fell to the ground. After another half an hour, Bei-Su was completely healed by the Shadow Edge Bat's Swarm Absorb skill. After Bei-Su recovered, he let the Blade Shadow Bat absorb the blood of the underground dimensional lifeforms to recover spirit qi outside the Pinnacle Class 2-dimensional rift. Once the Blade Shadow Bat's spiritual power reached its peak, Bei-Su entered the Pinnacle Class 2-dimensional rift with the Blade Shadow Bat. After a few hours, Bei-Su finally rushed out of the underground dimensional rift with the Sharp Shadow Dark Bat while covered in injuries. Bei-Su revealed a bright smile when he saw the two source-type items in his hands. Bei-Su sighed softly. Now I finally have resources in my hands. Although Bei-Su could not contract these two source-type items, he still did not feel depressed. After using the Blade Shadow Bat's Bat Swarm Absorb to clean up the Stone Swarm curse on his body, Bei-Su became a free resident in the underground world. He was no longer a stone worm that could be controlled. In addition, he had the Platinum X/Fantasy Eye Blade Shadow Bat. In Bei-Su's current location, he could definitely be considered a powerful existence. With these two source-type items, Bei-Su could use them to find suitable spirit qi professionals. He could also use the Blade Shadow Bat's exclusive skill, Bat Fanged Blood, to control the spirit qi professionals suitable for these two source-type items and let them contract the source-type items to increase their strength. This way, Bei-Su could smoothly gain subordinates and build his faction. After all, holding resources in a barren place like the Cave Continent's underground world was like holding diamonds in a slum. Resources could only be spent. After finding an underground river with the Blade Shadow Bat, Bei-Su jumped in and happily washed away the dirt on his body. After washing himself, Bei-Su's hand shook and he took out a cloth pouch-like thing. This cloth pouch-like thing looked very much like the abdomen of some insect species Fey. However, this abdomen bag had been emptied and it was filled with stones that emitted a faint glow. These stones had been collected by Bei-Su from one insect species Fey after another. Bei-Su used the collected luminous objects to make a simple small lamp. With the help of the light, Bei-Su began to seriously wash his tattered clothes in the underground river. Right at this moment, Bei-Su suddenly felt a wave of pressure. Bei-Su felt his hair stand on end. Bei-Su hurriedly grabbed the small lamp on the ground and ran back, not even having time to take back his clothes. At that moment, Bei-Su saw a long tail covered with red scales disappear from the underground river. Bei-Su touched his pounding heart and stood in place, unable to recover for a long time. Bei-Su had lived in the underground world for so long, But this was the first time he knew that there was life in the underground river of the cave continent's underground world. Just by feeling the pressure of this life, Bei Su could not have the slightest thought of resisting it. Bei Su, who was on the shore, muttered, "Fuck, how can I take a bath in the future?" The second one was even worse. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.